Welcome in, everybody. Roar of the Lions UK coming at ya. I'm Matthew Turner, waiting for my colleagues here. Hope you're all well. You've had a good victory Monday. Obviously, Lions coming away with a massive but excruciating victory against the Jets yesterday. We're going to be breaking that down. We're going to be going through the news. We are going to be have a look at how the Lions won that game, and then briefly maybe talk about the rest of the weekend's football. Hope you had a good weekend, Miss Bell. We'll try not to bring up the Patriots, but to be honest, it's going to be hard to avoid that one play in particular. Pretty sure it's going to come up, although maybe on the after the show section. Big Aries in the chat saying another victory Monday. He's there. It is amazing day. I'm feeling sick as a dog, and it was still a really, really fun day to be a Lions fan. Brent says, yep, another victory Monday, ugly win, so what? As the immortal Al Davis says, just win, baby. It's true. And doing the Raiders tour, actually, in Vegas, they very much hammer that point home, shall we say, which is something the Raiders haven't exactly been following recently. Shh. I know they won yesterday, but they've not exactly been good at winning recently. Cheers, John. Appreciate that. It's one of those things. It's just a Christmas bug. It's cold. People get colds. It happens. Sleep it off. Have plenty of alcohol. That will sort it out. Let me know what you thought of the game. Let me know if you've got any questions for the guys. I'll get it in. If you have an episode title that you want me to run, then let me know what it is, and maybe it goes in. At the moment, as it stands, it is 500, baby, because the Lions are 500 for the first time since their Week 2 victory against Washington. It's the first time I can remember that we've been 500 down the stretch since Caldwell's time. It's been a long time. And this Lions side is now 9th in DVOA overall in the entire season. I mean, let that sink in. They are the 9th best team in football, including the 1-6 start, including having the worst defense in living memory through 7 weeks. That's how bad the Lions were on defense through 7 weeks, and they are now the 9th best team in football, including that stretch. Makes you wonder what could have been this season. If they've been playing like this for the entirety of the season, like some good teams go, might we have a win total that resembles what the Eagles have been able to do this year? Maybe. How many games would the Lions have been able to flip early on in the season if they hadn't been playing like they were? I don't even know. I'm asking the question and I don't know the answer to that. But let me have a look and see what the Lions actually have done through this season. Okay, so lost to the Eagles in week 1. Playing a little better than that, they could have won that game. Vikings 28-24, they should have won that game anyway. Seahawks 48-45, probably would have won that game. Patriots game 29-0, I mean, that was closer than it suggested, but probably not. Cowboys 24-6, probably not. Dolphins 31-27, could have flipped that. And then the only other loss we have is the Bills game. I mean, you may be talking about a 11-3 team if they were playing at this level the way down. Absolutely incredible. Big Aries says Raiders have been rough. There was a point where they had a worse record than the Lions over a number of years, including the 08 season. When I started getting into football, the Raiders were what people think about the Browns. Then the Raiders started to get better, and the Browns got worse, and people thought the Browns were the worst team in the league. Then it was the Lions for a while. The Jets have been down there. The Giants have been down there. Hey, SW Lion. Deathfire Man says, so are we really going to root for the Packers tonight? I know the draft pick value was gigantic, but come on, can we really support the Packers? Support is a strong word. I would say not actively root against. Big Aries says, Lions lost to the Cowboys late. Had the offense gotten something going, it would swing. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe you're talking about 12-2 Lions team. Maybe. Brian Shook is in the chat. He says, I've been positively chuffed all day at yesterday's result and our current table situation. I have been shooting ropes of love since the win. Well, strings anyway. There we go. Quirky Zerky is in the chat and he says, Cowboys' loss was close until it fell apart after Williams fumble and Goff getting sacked fumbled. You're right. You're right. That was a closer game than I thought. And the Patriots game, we went for 8 times on 4th down and only got a handful of them. I mean, if you just convert the first one or you don't go for the first 2, that's a completely different game. I mean, all of the games, really, the Lions were in. And that Patriots side isn't good. I just don't believe it. Ashley Bellinger's in the chat saying, evening, everybody. SW Line says, defense looks good in the front 7. The secondary needs help. I don't know. I don't know. People will want to talk about this defense like that, and the front 7 is great. Okuda had his moments yesterday, both good and bad. Jerry just has good moments, really. Will Harris has good and bad moments, but he is having a lot more good than he has done in the past. I think he's a passable player for us now. What else do we have? Kirby needs a little bit of help, maybe. Deshaun Elliott is very, very good. So there we go. All right, Tom.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing well, mate. How are you?
Thank you. Very, very well. Victory Monday, my first one in a while.
Hey, I'm wearing
Not the Lions' first one in a while, but my first one in a while. So
you're wearing the Lions Ugly sweater as well, I see.
I'm indeed. It's probably going to be my last show before Christmas, so it's as close as I can to bring the Christmas spirit.
There we go. I love it. I love it. What a game. And what a weekend of football. Generally, like almost all the games yesterday as we were watching the Lions were 1-score games. It's the first time in a long time I can remember like them flicking in red zone going, well, this game's in play, and this game's in play, and this game's in play. Like,
yeah, and they were interesting. They were intriguing matchups as well. You know, when you get games where you don't really care about either the teams or it's too there's no storylines behind it. Whereas you had a whole range of things. Obviously, the Cowboys Jags game was its own thing, but then the Chiefs Texans, it was just like, what are we doing here? I was gutted. I was about to recently. I've been putting bets on good teams behind bad teams, and when that ball turned in overtime across to the Chiefs, to the Texans, I was like, absolutely need to lump on the Chiefs here. And then before I got a chance, I think it was the very first play, it was the turnover in the end of the game. It's just like, okay, brilliant. That's that.
Has that been working out for you? Lumping on good teams in bad situations?
Yeah, like little amounts. I don't really bet that much, but it's amazing how it's all those games which used to be kind of not brand new lines, but the same old lines. The times where you'd be leading and you'd be like, I feel terrible about this. And it's because you weren't used to winning and the other team were. It's basically just doing the other side of those bets. And it's working out pretty well so currently. So
I guess the hallmark of a good team really is being clutch.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
There's a horrible thing to define, but good teams pull it out under pressure and they put themselves in hole and still come back. I really thought the Texans were going to do it yesterday. The little part of me was just like, yeah, this is going to be one of those funny old games.
Did you watch the Vikings game?
In its entirety, unfortunately. I was absolutely loving life at halftime. I was high as a kite on just absolute delirium.
So I didn't see it live, but I could not believe it. And again, that was one where I actually put money on the Vikings when they went 17 to nothing down. And I didn't see what happened until I got the notification through on NFL.com being like, Vikings win 39-36. I looked at what happened and I was like, I should have kept lumping on if I'd actually been watching the game. But anyway.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the wild thing about that game, and it's really funny to say, it was a 5-possession game.
Nice.
But also, when you're 5 possessions behind, you would think that you would need to hurry up as an offense. But they didn't score their first points until halfway through the third quarter.
Really? Okay, interesting.
So, like, they weren't even rushing. They weren't in hurry up or anything. They're just like, we're just going to run our offense and see what happens. It's like, hurry the fuck up.
So how badly did the Colts, because you can't really pick it up from highlights, how badly did they choke it? Was it a mixture of, obviously execution was awful, but was it play calling? They just got in their shell? Like, what actually was it? Because scoring 36 points in 1.5 quarters is
It's
hard to do at any time.
it's ridiculous. It is
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, I'm struggling to kind of quantify it because nothing massively shifted. Like,
yeah,
the Colts weren't terrible on offense. They moved the ball a little bit. It was like the Lions yesterday through the third quarter. They kind of got one first down and then had to punt. Like, they
yeah.
wouldn't go 3 and out. The biggest difference is that the Colts' defensive line was utterly dominant in the first half. Cousins was running for his life the whole time.
Mhm.
And then the Vikings O-line kind of woke up a bit and just gave him a bit of time to throw. And that was the only difference, really, in the two halves.
Yeah, okay.
Cousins had just enough time to operate.
I appreciate we probably got to get onto the Lions. Has Cousins had a sneaky good season?
Cousins has had so they were talking about it on the broadcast right at the start
Okay,
of the thing, basically just saying Cousins has been, by his own standards, very good this year. And
yeah,
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Like, having watched him, he is Kirk Cousins. Like,
yeah.
nothing about what I've seen has made me think, oh, he's elevated himself. Like, Jared Goff this year, I can say, is elevating where I thought he was as a quarterback. Like, he is better than I thought.
Okay,
But Cousins is still within his range. Like,
interesting.
there's still bad
Well,
Kirk
I'm
in
sure
there.
we'll come on to that later because there's not going to be big golf takes, but I think it's a really interesting discussion, which I'm sure happens every week, but I think is even more relevant now after that win, which you can, depending on if you're glass half full, glass half empty, you can look at that in two different ways,
Mm.
and both be completely true and fair. Like this isn't going to be a hate or a love fest either way.
We'll come on to the Lions in a sec. I'm just trying to work out whether anyone else is on. Because I don't normally get a response from Ryan or Ant. And Ryan's marked as not on today. But he
Okay.
did that ages ago, so I don't know whether that's still true. And Ant normally doesn't respond, but he's just here. And I can see
Yeah.
he's active on Discord.
Okay.
But I haven't had a response on, are you coming on? So I don't want to start without him if it's only going to be a couple of minutes. So
We can give it a couple minutes.
yeah. John Ball says Cousins is a Stafford in purple, good and bad. Disagree. Heartily disagree. Um, I heard on the Draft Network today someone say 20 different teams in the NFL would love to have Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. And that sounds like a really, really good thing to say about someone. But what you're secretly saying there is that of the other 11 teams, they wouldn't want him, and they're probably all of the 11 best teams in the league. So he's a quarterback that maybe will get you the 6 or 7 seed or win your division every now and again, but actually, in terms of elevating yourself, is probably not the guy. Like, hidden within what he said, which I'm pretty sure is a compliment, is actually exactly what Kirk Cousins is all about, which is just not quite good enough.
So, question for you, and then interested in people drop comments in as well. Do you think the Lions would have a better record if Cousins was our quarterback this year?
That's a horrible question.
And so, rather than just answer you, I think they probably would, not by much, but maybe like a game or two, probably earlier in the season. And it's not that Goff did. There was plenty of losses where Goff didn't do anything wrong, but I don't think we'd be worse off. And I think that's then an interesting thing when you do come on to the discussion of is he an upsetter? Because I absolutely think you can win with him. I think Cousins probably gets an extra game or so, maybe. It's not. It's not that different. And to your point, there are still 20 teams in that example who want Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. But it's an interesting
It's
one,
a
and I think
really
it's
interesting
when you're in
question.
this purgatory is too unfair a word, but when you don't have a known franchise quarterback, and I'm like personally, I would take the Cardinals for example. I'm not a huge Kyler Murray fan. I'm not completely sold on Kyler Murray if I'm a Cards fan. I'm only talking about if you know you've got those top end guys. you're kind of always in this ground of like, is the grass greener? Is it not? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
tricky.
horrible thing. So lots of comments in the chat, all basically saying no. um,
Interesting.
Quirky Zerk saying at Tom, no, he wouldn't make this offense better. Cousins does better because of Jefferson. Debt Fan Man saying absolutely not. Goff is Cousins only 15 million cheaper. Geordie says Goff over Cousins. Goff goes through progressions better, but Cousins has slightly better accuracy. I disagree with all of you, but I agree with the conclusion. I would take Goff as well, but I think that Goff is more accurate than Cousins. I think that Cousins is a more consistent deep thrower, but Cousins is a less consistent quarterback for me. I think Goff is actually, when Goff is bad, he's almost consistently bad as well. Like he doesn't have much up, but like when he's up all the time, pretty much. You don't see too much bad from him. I think that Goff. This is the preface. Within this current system, and the system might be different. You plug Cousins into this offense, Goff runs it better. I think short passing game, lots of timing between him and Amon-Ra and Khalif Raymond, which is like the bedrock of what we do. There's not a lot of deep shots to speedy guys, and we've only just got speedy guy back, so you know, and Chark's been injured. So with the weapons that we've had through the season so far, I think if you plug Cousins into that, I think Goff probably has one more win than Cousins does.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think it's a really marginal decision. I'm not going to bring money into it because I think the point of the question is ignore money. Who does better? Like,
agree from a contractual standpoint, and it's funny given how bad Goff's contract was when he got traded as such. You'd rather have that. And with Cousins, it's almost a different type of frustration to potentially a Goff, which is you think you've got your franchise quarterback maybe, and you're paying him like it, but surely no Vikings fans are really that sold on that he's like the guy. He's just a good, probably he is an above average quarterback, I think. Whereas I think the Goff journey for us has been more positive. Like he's stepped up more than I thought he was going to when we first got him. Again, we'll come on to plenty of Goff chat, I'm sure. But I think it's an interesting piece.
It is. Ant hasn't watched the game yet, so he's not going to be on. Hang on. So he wants to watch it on Game Pass, and it doesn't release until
it's 24 hours afterwards.
Yeah. I downloaded a free VPN.
Yeah.
Set myself to France, downloaded the game this morning, and then have rewatched it. So
anyway. So like I say, I think as you're aware, I used to work with Game Pass, and I wouldn't say they do the bare minimum, but like they're not going to go out of your way to try and make everything impossible. There's no value to them to do that. So
no, at the end of the day, contractually they have to do it to satisfy Sky, but that's basically it.
And that does bring the cost down of Game Pass versus other countries, even though it's still very expensive. But it's not a problem we've really had as Lions fans. I'd love to know how many Game Pass blackout games we've had in the last 5 years. It will be low.
I would want to. So for the last 5 years, that's the last year of Coldwell.
I'm talking Patricia. No, that's just Patricia years because we had 3 and then 2 Campbell years.
Okay. I would set the over under at 2.5, including yesterday. About right.
It's like it can't be one a season. Like no one was dialing in to watch or shouting for a Lions game in the final Patricia year.
I'm kind of wondering whether Lions Jets first game of that first Patricia year was. I'm also wondering whether Lions Patriots, when the Lions beat the Patriots, whether that was. There's some early games in that Patricia era that I think attracted a bit of attention, especially when you weren't deep in the season yet.
Yeah, so that Lions-Jets game, am I right in thinking that was prime time? Was it Monday Night Football? And therefore it wouldn't have been Blacktown the same, but I think it was a prime time game. But I could well be wrong, I'm not sure. For some reason I've got that, because it was Darnold versus Patricia in his first game, etc., but yeah.
Anyway, Dan is asking about Goff's deep ball, and a specifically pointed question. He says, "Hey Matt and Tom, do you know the longest throws Goff did in 2018 with Brandon Cooks by any chance?" I mean, he was a good deep ball thrower to Brandon Cooks at that time. I know that.
So I have no idea. Is that, I guess, is a follow up question, but whether it's air yards or completion, I guess, because so take the Brock Wright pass, that counts as a 60, 70 yard
50,
touchdown, whatever it was.
51.
51-yard touchdown. I mean, it barely traveled in the air. So, there's always that trade off. Now, I'd assume there's a lot of air yards in there. The Jameson Williams underthrow is, I'm sure, going to come up. So I'm not going to touch on that. But yeah, I have no idea.
I've just sent you the Word doc,
Thank you very
and
much.
if you let me know if you're ready, we'll crack on.
Let's go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roar the Lions UK podcast, episode 168, 500 baby. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside co-host Tom Wilkinson. How you doing, man?
I'm good. 500. What a feeling.
First time since week 2 the Lions have been 500. First time since the Cold War era that we've been 500 in December, I think, if my memory serves. It's rough. Actually, no, maybe down the stretch we did get near 500 with Patricia once.
I'm not
I haven't researched that, but I'm just sure that we must have had losing seasons every time and come... I didn't research that at all, I must confess. Anyway, never mind. I will crack on. This is the Lions at Jets review show. Just a bit of preamble to start with. Our Discord channel is getting hot as the Lions are down the stretch. Please do come and join us on there. I'll put the link to join in the live chat of both Twitch and YouTube right now, if I can find a blooming place to do it. Excuse me. College Football Podcast was last week. They were talking about bowl games and doing pick watches. They were talking about the Heisman Trophy, and also they did some reviews of some players that they were asked to do. They're taking a week off this week. It's Ant's birthday on Wednesday. I'm sure you'll extend to him your best wishes, especially with Christmas just around the corner. If you have any players, because of course the draft, even though the Lions are doing well, is still front and center with that Rams pick. If you have any players that you'd like Ryan and Ant to profile, then please let us know. They're always happy to go and do that, but a week off for them this week. Please don't forget to like the show, the episode on YouTube, sub to the podcast, review, rate, all that good stuff that you can do. You know it helps us out. And Lions Nation Unite as well. Download the app there, Herman Moore's project, to bring the best in Lions content creators from YouTube all together in the same place. Dose of Dion, Micro Mike, Lions on the Prowl, and us, we're all there. And we are a Twitch affiliate. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you're not currently using the free Twitch Prime sub that you have, then please consider chucking it our way. It doesn't cost you a penny, but puts a little in our pocket to support the show's ongoing costs, and much appreciated if you can do that. Hey to everyone on the live chat, if you've got any questions as we're going through, please do put them in and we'll get them in the show. Any comments about the game or anything that you thought, would love to hear from you. Bit of news to start, Tom, and we touched on it in the pre-show. Minnesota have clinched the NFC North after the biggest comeback in NFL history. Let's just talk about that game a little bit. I know you haven't watched it live, but what a game, and what an epic fail from Matt Ryan and the Colts.
Yeah, who could have seen it coming? There's no previous famous storylines of Matt Ryan giving away a huge lead in a big game. So, who could have ever seen that? No, I mean, you've got to say fair play to the Vikings, really, as much as I hate to. I mean, you mentioned that they kept their composure even in the third quarter. There wasn't panic in terms of the play calling or even tempo by the sounds of things. So to come back and do that with the crowd on your back, obviously, I mean, fair play to them. And especially given, I mean, they've played horrible football over the past few weeks. So shows some character. I feel they're going to get dumped out of the playoffs very early. But yeah, I respect what they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a ridiculous game. I couldn't even believe it. They didn't score any points until halfway through the third quarter. With 4.5 minutes to go, they were still 15 points behind. Like, it just absolutely beggars belief. But watching it, I was utterly convinced it was going to happen, and it did. You know, you could just see the writing on the wall for the Colts. They couldn't get anything going when they really, really needed it. A little bit more news. Craig Reynolds has been activated from IR, which is great news for him. Although he's going to need a bit of luck to get back on this team, I think, because Justin Jackson is playing out of his skin at running back 3. So there we go. Corresponding move on the roster to make room for Craig Reynolds. The wide receiver extraordinaire Tom Kennedy has been waived. No word, at least that I have seen, whether he's been re-signed to the practice squad as yet. I mean, I thought that would be inevitable. I haven't seen him be claimed, and I haven't seen him come back either. So a little bit of surprise, Tom, perhaps?
Yeah, so I didn't see that either. And like I say, I may well have just missed it. I would assume he is going to come back, but yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a tough life for him, right? He's a fan favorite. He obviously has these big preseason games and has made important catches during the regular season too, but it just feels like it's never quite going to happen. I mean, if I was him, a bit like David Blau to some extent, I'd start thinking about, do I look elsewhere in next season? Because it doesn't feel like he's ever going to establish himself here. So
it's one of those things, you know, whether the grass is greener at that level.
yeah,
If you enjoy the graft, do you think you're playing at a level where you're still being valued at what you do and you'll get your chance to shine for a few games, and you know that when you hit the active roster and you're active for a game, you get $80,000 or whatever it is, and that's going to do you for an entire year as long as you get one active game, and you know the line's going to give you that chance every year. It might be better than sitting on someone else's practice squad for the entire year if they don't know what you can do. I don't know, like someone with that level of ceiling and everyone knows it, you know, are you going to go to Minnesota like Blau does and just definitely not do anything? Like, I think Blau was on a practice squad and got claimed by someone else, didn't he?
I'm not sure. Wouldn't surprise me at all, though. I mean, ultimately, these guys are such competitors that I imagine they're always going to bet on themselves rather than kind of stability. And now, if you look at where the Lions were and where they are now, that receiver room is deep, and there just aren't enough snaps to go around. So yeah, I could see him going to a place potentially with a young rookie quarterback or something like that, building trust that way and just becoming kind of the guy, the trusted guy. So yeah, we'll see. Obviously, I'd love to keep him here, but and I know most of the fans, all of the fans, I'm sure would too. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe look at something new next year.
The guys in the Twitch chat backing me up, Dan Pask and Quirky Zerky, both confirming that Blau got claimed by Arizona when Kyler Murray went down.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was sure I'd seen something like that. What else do we have? Cool Down Rat also in the Twitch chat said that Cephas is in 21-day eval as well. So if he comes back, then a wide receiver comes in and someone else has got to fall. I mean, I'm not even convinced they'll activate Cephas with what's happening, because who's bottom of the wide receiver depth chart now? Is it Raymond? Might be Raymond. And, like, you're not dropping him. There's no chance. So...
No.
So maybe you make room by cutting someone else, but I can't imagine who it might be. I mean, I wouldn't be cutting any of the edge players right now. I think everyone's contributing that room. I can't think of an obvious cut.
Yeah, what a world we live in now.
I mean, Kabinda, maybe, but they love him. Maybe a special teamer linebacker, but then you got a hole to fill there. It doesn't feel like it's a priority position, really, wide receiver 6, 7.
I agree. And you look at some of the guys who, obviously, like James Houston is getting more reps now, but that special teams unit is not only doing a really good job, but feels pretty settled. And so I don't think they'd want to give up a special teamer who's really contributing on that part of the side of the ball. So, yeah.
So lots of suggestions in the chat. Geordie Mansion says maybe Pittman or Woods. Woods is the captain of the special teams unit. There's no chance he's going anywhere. In fact, he's a prime candidate to get re-signed, despite what everyone may think. Pittman, maybe the best special teamer that goes unnoticed on that unit. He's just very, very solid every day, turns up, makes some big hits, but doesn't really do anything on defense. Quirky Zerky says Zylstra. Zylstra played the most snaps of any tight end in 11 personnel, and the Lions played 11 personnel, the most of any formation yesterday. So they love him as that tight end who either blocks as one tight end or is a pass catcher as a fourth guy. So I don't see that happening either. I don't know. It's really hard. I, I can't believe it. I was probably going to end with this sort of thing, but it's the best Lions team I can remember since I started being a fan. Maybe. I really feel like it's close. So, it was shared in the chat from Jeremy Reisman saying that by DVOA, the Lions are 9th overall for the season. And
Yeah.
that includes, after 7 weeks, being the worst defense in NFL history. Like, after 7 games, it was the most historically bad defense the league had ever seen. And we're now
Yeah.
the 9th best team, including that stretch. Which tells you quite how good this team has had to be to get there.
Yeah. And the fact that, I mean, look, if there's only 8 teams better than you, and I'd say the AFC is better than the NFC, surely there's only 4 NFC teams above us, I would guess. Not knowing what's above, I mean, it's a relatively
I count 2.
Okay. Got Eagles, Niners.
3. Eagles,
Cowboys.
Niners, Cowboys. But Cowboys would be close. And, I mean, Niners are sweeping everyone away without a quarterback, which is just incredible. But Purdy has been good. I will say I've been impressed by him. But he was the last pick for a reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Put him under a bit of pressure and we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's talk about this stupid, crazy, ridiculous game. Lions 20, Jets 17. Lions go 2-0 in the Meadowlands this season, which is incredible, especially given the well-documented Lions woes away from home, apparently, although just you could read Lions woes generally into that statement, I think probably, historically. Elevated linebacker Jared Davis and quarterback Josh Dobbs, although Dobbs was as a precaution, he ended up being a healthy scratch because our backup Nate Sudfeld was able to go. Our inactives for the game were offensive linemen Coyote Awashika and Ross Pierschbacher, Dobbs the quarterback, running back Craig Reynolds, who was activated, but like they did with Romeo Okwara, activated him and left him out, just giving him a little bit more time. Linebacker Derek Barnes, his knee's still giving him trouble, and defensive lineman Michael Brockers with sickness didn't travel, and Austin Bryant, healthy scratch. Looks like his days are numbered here. Maybe he's the guy who can fall. Austin Bryant's the guy who can go. There we go. The Jets obviously got some real heartbreaking news before the game when Quinnen Williams, Mike White, Corey Davis couldn't go. James Robinson, Lamarcus Joyner, Brandon Eccles, and Jeremy Rucker also not getting there. That's a heck of a lot of people to not have in this game. You know, we're looking at this saying, well, we scraped to win against the Jets, but without their best player in Quinnen Williams, without the starting quarterback in Mike White, without their wide receiver 2, running back they traded for in year, their best safety, that's a heck of a lot, Tom.
Yeah, it sure is. And obviously we'll come on to some of the quarterback play, but you're missing a lot of guys. The thing that they have in their favor is they have an incredibly talented defense, really across the board. Obviously, they have high picks, but they've also really coached along guys who were very much middle of the road NFL players. So a lot of talent on that team, which means they can probably overcome it more easily than others. But yeah, I'm sure not quite what they were looking for coming into this game.
No, it wasn't exactly the best. So let's have a look at the stats. Jared Goff didn't throw for the most yards, and 80 of those came in the final drive. 23 of 38 for 252 and a touchdown. On the ground, they went for 107 off 28 carries, including 8 for 52 for Swift, which is a big uptick in his fortunes. Jamal was pretty much held all day to short yardage. 13 carries for 33 yards, including a long of 10, which means his remaining 12 carries went for 23 yards, which is pretty rough going. In the receiving game, a lot of the damage done by Amon-Ra and Khalif. Amon-Ra went 7 of 10 for 76 and Khalif 5 of 6 for 53. Brock Wright with that late touchdown. His only catch went for 51 yards and that touchdown. For New York, Zach Wilson went 18 of 35, so a smidge over 50%. 317 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. In the receiving game, Garrett Wilson 4 of 9 for 98 and Jeff Smith 4 of 5 for 77. Jeff Smith came out of absolutely nowhere. Ash and myself had absolutely no idea who he was. And then he popped up for 2 absolutely massive passes, which, pissed me off no end, to be quite honest. In the rushing attack, the Lions held this unit to basically nothing all game. Zonovan Knight 13 for 23 and Michael Carter 4 for 15. On defense, obviously the Lions had the interception by Jerry Jacobs for 39 yards. It says 38, but we're giving him 39 because he wears 39. Led in tackles by Deshaun Elliott and Jeff Okuda and Kobe Joseph with 6. Lions got 7 tackles for a loss, including 4 sacks, 2 from Romeo Okwara, 1 from Houston, 1 from Kaminsky. Jets on defense didn't get any sacks. They did get 4 tackles for a loss, 2 from Quincy Williams, 1 from Carl Lawson, 1 from Nathan Shepard. Not a lot to speak of in the special teams game apart from the punt return touchdown by Khalif Raymond. Michael Badgley did miss a long field goal. Kick kind of died on him a little bit, which was a shame. And Greg Zuerlein missed a game-tying field goal attempt at the end. An iffy day for Jack Fox, who averaged 45 yards per kick, including a couple of short or knuckleball ones, and he also had a touchback, which was a bit disappointing. Those are your stats. Anything jump out to you there before we kind of dive into the game in more detail?
I guess another reminder that it's very hard to look at a box score and take kind of key insights away. Like I heard those Zach Wilson numbers, and if you didn't watch the game, you'd hear those and be like, yeah, it sounds like he took a step forward, completion percentage down, but threw for a lot of yards. I mean, it's just, we'll come on to it, but yeah, not to always read the box score would be my call out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lions started on offense, and they actually had a really nice drive to start. Toss to Swift for 9 on the outside. Goff play action pass to Mitchell, converting for a first down. Goff on 3rd and 6, completes to Raymond to convert. A nice timing throw then, probably my throw of the day, actually. Goff on a timing route to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was only for like 10 or 12 yards, but the window is so tight and the timing had to be absolutely precise. It was really, really pretty. Followed that up straight away with another Amon-Ra catch, converting for first down and goal from the 7. And from first down and goal on the 7, despite all of our damage being pretty much done in the passing game, we went run, 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 and got stacked from the half-yard line back to the 2 on that 4th down and goal. First drive was almost like more of the same from previous weeks, where the offense looked like it was rolling, we were going to put points on them, and we were going to continue to do so. And it looked like, I don't know, maybe that they bottled it a little bit, or just thought Williams is money from this situation, so we are just going to bank on him. And it didn't work. And you have a look at what the Jets are good at, and we weren't really matching their weakness with our strength, I don't think.
No, I can't remember the 3rd down, what we had to go then, because Dan Campbell was always going to go for it on 4th. And other reasons we'll come on to, obviously, what happens afterwards. But with the 4th down play, I think it was Quincy Williams wasn't on the Jets side. He made a hell of a play. It wasn't executed brilliantly from the Lions side, but he's fought through, I want to say, both tight ends, one pulling across the formation, and then I think he got a chip from Mitchell before, fought through it to make a play. I mean, that one especially was a hell of a play. But we do go through these, and maybe it's just life with this team and our talent that we are going to want to run the ball in situations, and it's hard to get in the goal line, to be honest. So it's a bit frustrating when you just see run and not get in. And there's been a number of times throughout the season, even in this game, where you have 2nd and long runs and even 3rd and long runs, and you kind of question, what are we doing here? But yeah, I think with the 4th down play specifically for me, it was you absolutely go for it, and it was a brilliant play from Quincy Williams to start.
If I remember the 3rd down play correctly, it was 3rd and goal from the 4, and we ran out of shotgun with Justin Jackson, got 3.5, and he got hit with about a yard and a half to go and fell forwards, and probably wasn't ever going to get there, but yeah.
In which case, I don't mind the fact that we did run it all 4 times. It would have been 2nd down is probably where you look to pass the ball. If you've got 4, if you know you're going for it on 4th and you've got 4 yards to cover, then normally you're going to be like, I'm just going to run the ball on 3rd down, because if I get between 1 and 3 yards, I then feel good about converting on 4th. If you pass the ball incomplete, then obviously 4 yards, you're realistically not going to run that in probably. So you actually saw it later in the day as well, when we were going to go for it on 4th down for one of the conversions. We did the same thing. I think it was 3rd and 4, and it was another run inside. And I was there thinking, kind of, what are we doing here? but it was because Campbell had already made the decision. We were in purgatory almost with what to do, so we were going for it on fourth down, and that's how you then set up a fourth and short. So yeah, it's frustrating when you just see it as run, and you don't get in, but I can understand the logic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Jets turn them over at the 2. And then the Lions almost force a safety. So Elliott and Bugs tackle for a loss. Knight gets back to the half-yard line just. Jerry, then very physical on the outside against Garrett Wilson. DPI not called. I think that was a bad non-call, to be honest. It looked like Jerry didn't turn his head at all and just played the man. And then Okudah almost picks off Wilson. Really nice play by him to react to the ball, but just can't get his hands there in time. That makes it 4th and 11, and here's the punt return for a touchdown. So they're going from the half-yard line, so as little room as you can have as a punter, and he hurries it more than he needs to, but you can't take any chances from that situation. He manages to punt to his own 46. Raymond takes it, beats the man oncoming, and then there's no one near him. Like, I heard people say, oh, the blocking was good, but there wasn't anyone near him. The one person that did get near him was the punter himself right at the end, who was ably blocked by James Houston, and Raymond leaped over him for the touchdown. But as much as it was a good play by Raymond, and I give him as much credit as I can, it was a woeful play by the Jets. It was terrible.
Yeah, and this is why, obviously, you want to get in on fourth down, but I don't see why you wouldn't always go for it if you had 4th and goal from the 2 or something like that, even if your offense wasn't humming, because if you can get pressure and you feel like you can get a stop, punting with that kind of reduced distance between the back of the end zone and the formation, you're never going to, like, on the commentary, what was the name of the color commentator? I can't remember. But anyway, he was saying it was a bad punt, and it probably didn't have the hang time you'd like, but it's so hard to punt the ball deep when you've got that shorter field. So yeah, at that stage, it's very hard to cover. Like you say, there wasn't really much blocking other than James Houston, and some fancy footwork from Raymond avoiding him. I thought it was going to be he was going to trip over, so that was pretty tasty. But yeah, I mean, it just looked, that was one of those moments where we basically walk in for the touchdown. We've had a really nice first drive. Defense comes out on fire. And you get the feeling this could be one of those nice, easy days we've seen over the past 6 weeks. Little did we know the pain that was to come.
So, kickoff comes, and it's short, and Barrios fumbles it and manages to recover just in time before getting covered. I think the Lions were... There was a flag which meant that they were set back 5 yards,
Yes.
so Fox kind of chipped it up a bit to give the Lions coverage team time to get down there instead of risking not getting the touchback. Knight gets tackled for a loss again, so on the second drive, his second TFL on only the 5th or 6th offensive play, the Jets run. Wilson then panics on the blitz and chucks it up, but not intercepted. In fact, defensive pass interference on Elliott. He does hold him pretty much all the way. Holds him before and after the ball is thrown. Maybe a bit unlucky to not get called for holding, instead pass interference, but there we go. Knight hit at the line again by Hutchinson in the ensuing 3. 2nd and 2, Knight again gets no gain. Wilson then sacked by Houston and just completely left by the Jets offense. And Wilson should be looking at him going, pass rush specialist, can't drop into coverage. I'm leaving him unblocked. I've got to throw the ball within a 1.5 seconds. And he double clutches and just eats the sack. And then they have to throw it away. Punt it away when, if they throw it away, maybe they can consider going for it on 4th down. Or, I mean, they got Greg the Leg. Maybe they consider going for a long field goal. I'm not sure. But another baffling play by the Jets. I mean, they managed to get it into reasonable territory on the Lions side of the field and end up having to punt away. And that happened a couple of times to them in this game.
Yeah, it showed with obviously Wilson having not been in the lineup recently, but there was a lot of almost football intelligence plays that you wouldn't want your quarterback to be having to think about. And it felt like he was thinking about everything, and everything was happening very much in the moment rather than him having the composure to really understand the situation and what was going on. So yeah, again, I mean, this just it sets up nicely. I thought that the defense in particular on this drive, the way we defended the run on those early downs was super impressive. Ali McNeil was brilliant again. I think it may have even been the last time I was on the show a few weeks ago, but I was saying, where is this Ali McNeil, which we heard so much about in training camp? The first half of the season, he wasn't bad. He was just a little invisible. And he's the complete opposite now. Even when he has games where he's not at his absolute best, he keeps having these splash plays, and he's clearly making a difference in the middle of that line. That showed up on these early Jets run plays. So yeah, poor execution from them, to be honest, and I think solid from the Lions.
Yeah, very solid. I couldn't believe how good the run defense has been over the last 8 weeks, 8 games, maybe 9 games. I mean, so it was pointed out last week, and I'm not sure whether you've actually listened to the show when you've been away, but someone pointed out, and I need to go back and actually look at this, that the Lions have been one of the best teams in the league against running backs rushing. And actually, in the first part of the season where they were terrible against the run, all those yards were being gained by quarterbacks. It wasn't really any running backs doing the damage. You think about the Bears and Justin Fields. It wasn't David Montgomery, Like,
yeah.
So I need to go back and have a look at exactly what damage has been done by running backs, but I really don't think it's been very much at all from memory all across the season.
No, but if you remember those early games, it looked like we were just people were kind of knife through butter. Whether it was running back or quarterback, it was really frustrating to watch. And obviously, it was a really clear part of the poor defense last year for the Lions was how easily teams could run on us. So to see that improvement with obviously not a huge change in talent, especially in the middle of that line, is really, really impressive.
It is. There's lots of chat that I can't catch up with when I'm speaking, so let's see. Quirky Zerky says Goff has the second most passing yards against the Jets this season with 252. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
It really is. Again, I think that 252 is slightly inflated by especially what happened with the Brock Wright play, etc. But yeah, I mean, that Jets defense is legit, and we'll come on to some of the things that weren't perfect with the Lions, especially in the second and third quarter. But even just getting out there with a win was impressive.
On the next play, so the Jets punt, and it goes for a touchback, which is just a waste from their position. They were around midfield, and they only gained 13 net yards. Lions only run a few plays. It wasn't quite 3 and out, but they are forced to punt away, I think maybe after only 1 first down. Jets back on offense. Wilson rolls out to his right, gets flushed out a little bit, but he's got so much time. No one in front of him whatsoever, Jets or Lions players. And he throws long to Garrett Wilson for a big gain. Then a naked bootleg to the left and a nice throw across his body to CJ Uzomah for 41 yards. Beats Kirby Joseph to a touchdown. Jets, PAT's good. 7-7 tie ball game. And those came in back-to-back plays. So that first one to Garrett Wilson, I think, was from their own 25 to the 41. And then Uzomah from the 41 for a touchdown. I mean, really took the wind out of me. And when I saw that happen, I thought, how has Wilson got that free for the throw to Wilson? And then he kind of chucks it up a bit infield. Like Wilson has run his route as a kind of corner route. And then in the scramble drill comes back inside and Wilson throws inside him to where only he can get it. But it just should never be that free. The only weapon really that they have in their wide receiver core at this point, Elijah Moore, great, but you're not going to threaten you down the field as much. He's not that guy. And then the naked bootleg to the left, I say throws across his body, but he really didn't because he kind of had time to reset himself, compose himself, wait a couple of seconds, and then throw the ball to CJ for the touchdown. And Kirby tries to swap the ball away when he really could just tackle the man's legs. Like, his chance of forcing an incompletion there was very small. His chance of saving the touchdown was significantly higher. And I think he just kind of, his inexperience showed there was aggressiveness kind of showed, because we know he's a bit of a ball hawk. We know he is uber aggressive. We heard that when he was coming out. Maybe the lack of experience showing from Kirby a bit.
Yeah, and I need to rewatch that. Like, that's actually one that I've noted down. I want to rewatch because they showed a replay from behind the quarterback so you can see the field. I believe Kirby's basically got centre field. I'm unsure what he read to let CJ Azuma come all the way across his face, because he's really. I don't feel like there's a deep threat going into the other corner. So I'm struggling to see what has meant he's late on that. He's got the range and speed to get across there comfortably. And actually, if he makes the right read, he can jump that easily. So I think you're exactly right. It was an inexperienced thing with the ball in the air, not knowing how to play it and living to fight another down. But I'm still not sure what he's seen there, which has allowed Zuma to come across his face like that.
Wilson just operating so well outside of structure. Like, it seemed like when he was able to get in those positions, he killed us all the way through the game. And actually, that was one of the things I was fearing. And why the Jets didn't do that more often really confused me down the stretch. He seemed to be asked to operate in structure as much as he could, whether that was in play action or not, but he wasn't getting bootlegged or anything like that at all to avoid that offensive line, because the Lions were getting pressure. And actually, when they got pressure and he got flushed out, that was when he looked best. So, any thoughts on the play calling aspect of things there for them, and why the Lions maybe couldn't shut that down as well?
The only thing I can think, because I agree, I mean, if you think about their yards in the air, a lot of them came from those rollouts, broken plays, etc. At the same time, I think, like I say, we'll come onto the Lions DBs. There was a lot of balls just thrown up for grabs to Garrett Wilson, who's 6 foot, 183 pounds, and he was making plays on the ball. Is that sustainable? The Lions probably should have either batted a few more down, defended plays better, potentially turned the ball over more. And maybe they thought, yes, this is working to some extent, but we can't just keep rolling him out because he's going to make bad decisions and keep turning the ball over. And we at least need to try and limit the turnovers as best we can. That's the only thing I can think of, because he just there was his footwork in the pocket is just clearly not where it needs to be, and you saw that with the accuracy. He can stand in the pocket and miss a guy by 3 or 4 yards, high, left, right, like either way. He was leaving the ball behind a lot for these guys, and given his arm talent, it's just almost unforgivable. So yeah, it's a tough scene for the Jets OC who had to deal with that. I think there was no good answer.
That makes sense. So Lions get the ball back now, tie ball game. Out of I formation, play action pass to DJ Chark on a shallow crosser. Turns upfield for 18 yards, which was a really nice play. It's actually called to Josh Reynolds on the coverage, but it was definitely DJ Chark. It was number 4. Very next play, Goff on a deep shot to J-Mo, way underthrown. J-Mo's beaten his man. This is 60 yards or so we're talking. It's back from the 40 or 45. And J-Mo's waiting for the ball to get to him on the goal line to kind of catch it and fall into the end zone. He's turned around and he's just waiting to fall backwards. And DJ Reed, I think it was, manages to kind of flail an arm just in hope rather than expectation, because he's beat by 3 yards and manages to kind of catch up. Goff, if he can get another couple of yards on it, is absolutely there. Great route by J-Mo, and second time he's done it to a team, obviously just kind of burned him for speed. Makes you wonder why the Lions aren't running that play more. But also a shame that Goff couldn't connect there. I mean, the thing is about long shots like that is you only get so many chances to hit those in a game. It's not that sort of thing that you get a lot of practice doing in a game again and again and again. Muscle memory isn't quite there, like the really nice throw I talked about to Amon-Ra early in the game, which was a timing route, which was 12 yards. You can do that every single play if you want to, but that felt like that could have been a bozzy blow that they got away with, the Jets.
Yeah, and it was a nice route. The one with the Vikings was more busted coverage, let's be honest. But but it was a really nice route from Williams. And there's part of me which is a little bit, maybe this is conspiracy theory, but they've absolutely got J-Mo on a snap count. I think they're maybe even protecting him more than they could or they should, with one eye on potentially a wildcard game in case that's in their future. And they don't want to put too much on tape of what are some of these plays where we're going to get them deep. Could be completely off with that. I definitely don't think that they would, if they were I mean, if they were 5-9, I don't think they'd be playing him that much more. I just wonder if they're maybe holding him back even a little more, getting him comfortable in the hope that, especially come week 18 and hopefully a wild card game, he can have an even greater impact. It was frustrating to watch. Let's all be honest in terms of seeing that ball underthrown when he's so far deep for him. A really nice play by the DB, not giving up on the play, but it doesn't really worry me at all. And again, I'm not going to go to bat for Jared Goff being a great deep ball thrower, but JMO's a certified freak, and that's going to take a bit of time for anyone to get used to, especially when he hasn't had the off season, he hasn't had the early part of the season to build that chemistry. I mean, if you drop Josh Reynolds into other teams in the league, I guarantee he wouldn't be having the same connection as he does with Goff, because that's a real thing, developing that connection. When you've got a guy who could easily have run a 4.2 at the combine and is new to you, that's going to take a bit of time to get used to. So do I think Goff will get it together with JMO perfectly? No, because I don't think he's a wonderful deep ball thrower, but I don't think you can expect him to at this stage. Like there's going to be these issues, and he's going to overthrow him at some stage in the next few weeks as well, as he tries to find out that kind of where to drop the ball, I guess.
Yeah, Quirky Zerky makes this point in the chat as well. So Goff had to step up in the pocket, which messed up the timing of the throw. JMO didn't get open until the 10-yard line, so it was going to be a tight throw no matter what. If Goff throws it further, the ball is almost out of the end zone. Now, I don't entirely buy that argument, but what I will buy is the difference between hitting someone in stride or not is like a yard and a half at best. And trying to put a yard more on the ball on a 50-yard throw is needle and haystack stuff. You know, some element of that is just complete luck as to trying to put 2% more power on it. It's not like playing Tiger Woods in the golf where you can just time the swing absolutely perfectly for the power that you want. You know, it feels basically the same, you know, to make that a throw. So the tiny little adjustments are really difficult.
And that's exactly why I was thinking when I saw some of the chat on Twitter afterwards. It's almost, we're so preconditioned to playing Madden where you just press a button and the ball lands in the receiver's arms. You kind of forget the speed this is all moving at to drop the ball in a bucket, whether it's at 49 yards, 50 yards, and 51 yards. And those three distances have completely different outcomes is kind of crazy. Now, yes, they're the best in the world for a reason. They should be able to do it. Is it something that we'll all be monitoring? Absolutely. But this one-off, I'm not hugely concerned by.
So that would have been a 56. Oh no, sorry, beg your pardon. Read my own notes. So after that play, Lions go for it on 4th and 3. That was going to be a 56-yard attempt if they'd gone for the field goal. So they turned down that, and considering what happens later, maybe a good decision. 4th and 3, convert to Amon-Ra St. Brown on a sideline crosser. So a shallow crosser to the near sideline. Jamal Williams' touchdown later on in this drive gets called back for an Evan Brown hold. Run another play to get some yards back, and then another Brown hold brings them back down to like 2nd and 27 or something like that. They managed to get back 15, but then they can't convert on 3rd and 12. Field goal's good from 31. Lions take a 10-7 lead. A little bit on Brown, seemed like a bit of a 2 holds, and everyone thinks he's had a really rough day. Goff didn't get sacked. I think that reflects well on the O-line in general. But Brown getting pinged for holds where the defensive lineman tries to disengage and he can't just let him go. It's not a hold in terms of he's getting beat. It's more shaking off a bit of rust because you know that sort of thing's happening and you just have to react to it. One of them, I think, actually was getting his hands on the outside of shoulder pads, and it's just incredibly obvious when you need to be inside or just push. Don't even hold at all.
The first one, look, they're both just execution errors. In general, the Lions have got a lot better this year, and especially in the second half of the season when it comes to flags. I don't know. I don't have any data on that, but just from eye testing, it feels like that we've been better in that regard. The first one, you're right. It was kind of, yes, it was probably a flag. Will it always get called? No. The second one was more egregious. I'm pretty sure he was kicking out and blocking a DB. And to wrap your hands around a DB when, I mean, he could manhandle him with one arm was just, we can't be doing that, really. Especially when, obviously, they're going to have their eyes on you. You've just held before. You've got to be smarter than that. So a bit frustrating and a bit of a theme which continued then for the next 10, 15 minutes in terms of just execution not quite being there. It was a little bit what we'd seen earlier in the season rather than the last few weeks, but yeah.
Dan Pass says that hold which took away Jamal's touchdown was BS for me. When I watched it back, I was hoping that I was thinking that too. But when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, he's just totally prevented a guy from making a touchdown saving tackle. Like, if I was on the other side of that, I would be absolutely livid if I'm not being given that hold, because you might say that that defender has no chance to make the stop, but you have to be given the ability to try. Like, he did not let him move when he was trying to disengage. For me, it's as clear as day. Now, you're right on whether it gets called or not, because sometimes that's hard to see. That's why the back judge called it, because the normal judge that calls holds from the front side couldn't see it. And that's why you get away with it sometimes. And in fact, getting away with that sort of thing is good O-line technique. But, you know, sometimes the back judge is going to see it and you'll get pinged for it. So I think it's 100% hold. But yeah, you're right on the second one. That there's just no need. Like, just push him over. Like, he's not going to be able to hang with you. You're almost double his weight. Just push him over.
Even if you, like, a DB isn't going to go through you, or very few are in that situation, and so he's going to have to work around you, even by being in the way without like forcibly engaging. You're impacting the play in a positive way. So yeah, I mean, look, it was the first one I've got no real issue with. Like I say, sometimes they get called. It's more probably trying to get away with it. The second one, you just can't do that.
No, so the Lions take a 3-point lead after that all fizzles out. Getting to the back end of the first half now, Wilson play action pass to Moore. Nice first down throw through the middle in rhythm. A zone keeper on 3rd and 1, he converts. I really had hope that we could stop him doing that, but it wasn't to be. And then a jet sweep on 3rd down, and they convert on that too. Ash said on the coverage, they've stolen that from us. I'm not sure we invented the play, but we have done it a lot recently. And then pressure in Wilson's face. He throws it away. He got called for intentional grounding. You could see Salah absolutely livid on the sideline, but he really does chuck it into the ground. Like, it is in the direction of someone, but he bounces it 5 yards away from him throwing, and the receiver's about 15 yards further away. Like, I don't understand why Salah was incensed there, but intentional grounding's called, so you get 2nd and 20 around midfield. Then Wilson gets sacked by Romeo Okwara. Good to see him getting some meaningful snaps, and that actually kicks them out of field goal range. They can't convert on 3rd down and long, and they have to punt. Second example, Tom, of the Jets getting on our side of the field, looking like they're in field goal range or the fringes of, especially with someone like Greg Zuerlein, who has got a field goal from 60 plus in his career. So, you know, very much possible in his range, and they're shooting themselves in the foot. When the Lions win this game by 3 points, to be sacked out of field goal territory or fringe field goal territory twice is egregious, I think, on the part of Zach Wilson. And, you know, asking him to come back in after 4 games and execute perfectly is a hard task. But he got them to that point, and just don't screw it up. Like, both teams conceptually are trying to not give away the ball or get out of point scoring range, and it just happened a couple of times for them. A good play by Okwara to get the sack as well, I have to say, but, you know, it feels like the Jets left more on the table than perhaps we did, even though we went 0 for 3 in the red zone.
Yeah, agree. And I guess you can look at that in 2 ways. You can say Wilson needs to be better. He does and did need to be on the day. But you're in a tricky place when you're calling plays there, because you want to be aggressive, but at the same time, part of you is probably there thinking, we just need to get this within field goal range so we can get points. And so you could make the argument maybe they should have been slightly defensive on their play calls to try and just keep moving the ball up and trying to get the first down, yes, but making sure they were actually kind of getting these little kind of 3-4 yard plays in, rather than relying on Wilson to do everything himself. It's just a really tough place to be when you've got a quarterback who's struggling like that. But I'd say this is one of the clearest examples of this brand new Lions. Is not just the outcome of the game. It's, to your point, 2 drives where it looks like, and the Jets were playing nicely now. Like Wilson was looking like Wilson, but they were making plays. The Lions defense looked a little shell shocked at this stage, but they still made a stand and kept them out of field goal range and kept points off the board. And ultimately, as you mentioned, it's a 3-point game at the end. That's what made the difference. And it's that which we didn't have before, not only last season, but during the Patricia era earlier in this season. We'd always give up those third downs and allow people to keep getting points and keep kind of chipping away. That feels like one of the really clear differences with the changes over the past 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. We are situationally more aware and keeping things tighter in those crucial moments. I mean, sometimes we would resemble a Vikings defense currently. I would say just soft zone, really defensive. I'll take what you like. It's okay as long as we don't concede when you get down to the red zone, which is just so...
Yeah.
You're reducing it to a game of red zone defense, and you can't reliably do that, especially against good teams.
Yeah, and we were talking slightly before we started around where the places are for certain guys who are fan favorites, and actually who do you cut from the current roster. And even when you go down to this defense, and this defense is not loaded with talent, there's high picks, but it's not a team of superstars. At the same time, I don't think you can pick on guys as easily as previously. Now, I think all of us would agree that the DBs didn't have a good game against the Jets, but there aren't those kind of players where you think I can just target this guy. Last year, Anzalone in coverage, prime example, it was awful, and you knew that they could always go to the middle of the field on these short intermediate routes, and you could convert. Similarly, we'd struggle on the outside at times as well if Amani was out there. We don't have quite those same negative matchups now that you can look at our defense and say, I am just going to target this one player, and I know that my guy is going to beat him. We saw it a little bit with the DBs, but almost unintentionally, right? They were balls just heaped up and Garrett Wilson went and made a play or beat guys rather than it being a target from that Jets game plan to be like, we're going to go after Jeff Okudah or we're going to go after Malcolm Rodriguez, something like that. You just can't do that, I don't think, in quite the same way.
Yeah, agree. So after the Jets punt, there's 58 seconds on the clock. Lions look like they could have given up 3 or worse and maybe go in level or behind. Suddenly 3 ahead looked like they got a chance to run a 2-minute drill and maybe go further in front. Swift starts on the ground with a lovely run for 15, gets you to about the 40-45 yard line. You're thinking, hey, we're looking like we're going to do something here. And then just an anemic set of 3 plays with a big bag of nothing, and the Lions punt. The drive takes 33 seconds, and with 25 seconds to go from the Jets 19, the Jets end up with 3 and tie the game up. Wilson, first play, really long throw to Jeff Smith on the right-hand sideline to the Lions 31. So it's a pass of 31 and 50. 50-yard pass to Jeff Smith, pretty much all through the air. And then next play, really nice throw to Jeff Smith again for 16 yards on the far sideline. 12 seconds to go, 15 yards to go. Throws to the end zone. Okudah contacts the man early in the end zone. It's a bit bang bang, but I've seen those called. Was not called, but that would have been first down and goal from the 1 if it was. 8 seconds to go. Wilson looks like he's going to give it a chance, but ends up throwing it away out of the end zone to the left-hand side. And the field goal's good from 34, 10-10 tie half. And at the end of the day, I was thinking at half-time, wow, we've got away with one there again. The defense has just about held on. But a few 50-50 plays on referees' calls. I talked about Jacobs on the first drive not getting called for DPI. Okudah here not getting called for DPI. Marginal calls kind of going the Lions' way, even though the deep balls we just couldn't defend all day, it seemed like. We managed to get out only conceding 3.
Yeah, and to your point, it definitely felt like we got away with that. This is where it started getting a bit concerning. Watching guys we've potentially never heard of run past our DBs it's not a great place to be. Yeah, when you've got previously third choice Jets quarterback Zach Wilson throwing to a guy called Smith that you've never really heard of and just torching Okudah off a line. it's a concern. This is the kind of thing where, with the game, as I think we touched on, being kind of blacked out in the UK, normally on Game Pass, you can just rewind a play and watch it again and see what actually happened. Whereas when it's a live stream, we can do that. So this is another one I'd like to go back and look at what happened to Akuda. But we're getting a few more data points through the season in terms of if it's these deep crosses and, to be honest, just go routes. He's really struggling. If he doesn't make contact at the line, guys are just blowing past him. So it's a theme which is starting to carry. And I think the honeymoon for Jeff in his first few weeks is starting to wear off, sadly.
I would hang fire on the Akuda stuff just for the moment. I still think he's suffering with the effects of his illness from last week. So he spent most of practice before the start of the last game. Didn't practice, I think, all week, had flu. Exactly the same thing that was affecting, who was it who was badly affected by it? Oh, was it the Vikings? No, it was France in the World Cup final, looking lethargic. So half their team went down with the virus before the game.
Really? Didn't know that.
Yeah, so they look really tired and basically just said, oh, they've got no energy, they can't get up for it. And I think Akuda, when you do have like flu, sometimes it can just take you 2 weeks to get back. Anyone who got COVID kind of knows what that sort of lethargy can feel like. And maybe it feels like I'm throwing Akuda a bone a little bit. But what I saw from him before the illness was someone who had the odd play here or there where you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But I also saw data points from him that I hadn't seen before from him in his Lions career, where he was showing some really high-level stuff. So I want to give him another week to kind of get back to full fitness before I really do beat him with a stick. Because if he was fully fit for this game, he wasn't good. Most of the time. He picked the ball off almost twice as well. And in run defense was okay, but that's what we know he can do. It's the coverage stuff which is interesting.
Yeah, and again, we managed this by saying, I think in the first few weeks of the season, there was the hope from fans that he could turn into the player we were hoping we were getting. And I'm not saying he won't. It's just now, the second half of our season to this point, I don't think he's quite shown that. And he looks very much like a starting cornerback in this league, but maybe not the guy that could take that step to be one of the league's best. Now, maybe he can. Who knows? I think this film, like you say, if there's nothing from an illness standpoint, this is the kind of film that critics would say he looks like he should become a safety. And I don't even mean that in a derogatory way, as in I think he could be a fantastic safety. He's got such a clear skill set there. And I'm not saying move him there. I'm just saying this is the kind of film where you could say you can see his impact in the run game, filling the alley, being physical. Obviously, having a knack for the ball, in that he didn't get a pick, but he was around it. He struggled with the traditional corner stuff, which is obviously important when you're a corner. And actually, do I prefer him in a matchup? If you think about him as a strong safety, playing a lot of man on the line, up against tight ends, he's tall, he's physical, he's got length. I love those matchups. What I don't like is going against those agile, quick guys. Obviously, deep threats as well as a risk. So, look, I'm absolutely not saying I'm done with Akuda. Like, far from it. But it wasn't great.
Yeah, true. Right, out the half, and the first noticeable play is an inner Sam Darnold interception by Zach Wilson. I mean, really could have been a carbon copy of what happened a little bit further down the field. Obviously, we took that one back for 6 in the Darnold interception game and went on to lose that one. But Wilson throwing from the center of the field to the near sideline, and just a terrible decision and a terrible pass with no zip, just kind of hung up there. My nan could have caught it and she's dead. Like, it was just absolute terrible pass. Jerry just kind of plucks it on the move, momentum going forwards, returns it for, give him 38.5 yards. Down to the 15 of the Jets, and he was actually very conservative. I thought that he could kind of see the line and think, I'm going to put my head down and go for it, and sometimes that works out badly, and he decided, you know what, the interception's good enough for me, I'm going to put it in the hands of my offense and trust them to get it done, which I think is a smart play by Jerry, really. He goes out at the 15, And then the Lions offense let him down, go 3 and out, kick the field goal, and go up by 3. It wasn't a good set for the Lions. They ran the ball for a tackle for a loss, I think, with Jamal. Just bag of nothing, really. The Jets defense actually stood up really nicely for them there and bailed out Zach, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if we quickly get the throw out of the way, it's one of the worst throws I've seen all season. And I'd have to see the all 22 to see if there's something more to it. But it looks like there's almost zero disguise. And he's just lofted the ball up there. It wasn't even near his guy either. That's the thing. It wasn't like it was a floaty ball and it was a 6'3" guy who's going to go up and make a play. It wasn't even close to the receiver. It wasn't a big receiver. It was the easiest pick I've ever seen. And to your point, I was watching it live and I was thinking the same thing. I was like, Jerry's going full steam ahead and then he kind of just goes out of bounds. And my initial reaction was like, oh, maybe he could have done something different. And then I genuinely got flashbacks to I had a very similar situation in my limited playing career and it literally ended my career. I tried to step inside against an offensive lineman and ruptured my ACL and fractured my collarbone. I was hit so hard. So I kind of, after initially watching as a fan and being like, maybe you should have just stepped inside, I then got firmly back in my box. So.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So the Lions just stalled out. Kick for 3 from 34. Next ensuing possession by the Jets. Really nice run by Knight. The first good one he's had all day. And it's brought back by a hole by George Fant, their maligned right tackle. And then a dump off on 3rd down and long doesn't get there. So they go 3 and out and punt to the Lions 34. Raymond converts for a 1st down really nicely. And I thought he did a good job all day in the receiving game with a pretty anemic passing attack actually for the Lions all day. Goff then did really well on 2nd down, avoiding a sack with a pump fake, so a defender right in his face, and he kind of goes to throw, doesn't, adjusts, and does something which actually, for Goff, he's done really well all season. Instead of trying to spin out of things, he tries to juke players sometimes or just buy himself an extra second to throw the ball away, which he did very well, so I've got to compliment him for that. Unfortunately, that brought up 3rd and 5, and the Lions couldn't convert, and Fox, from about midfield, ends up kicking a touchback. It's the first time I've seen a Fox punt where I just looked at it and thought, that's not a good punt, which was a real shame. At this point, though, the Jets haven't started beyond the 25-yard line. We're about halfway through the 3rd quarter, and the Lions are playing the field position game really, really well, despite that touchback. Wilson, on 3rd down, then throws this awful air ball. I mean, even worse than the interception throw. But unfortunately, Deshaun Elliott just can't locate the ball, and Michael Carter goes up for it and catches it really well to his credit. And he should be expecting like big contact. He's going to get absolutely mullered in the air, and it doesn't come. Like, they convert for a 1st down on that play, and it's like, I watched it back, and how did that happen? I don't understand. Then Conklin does a tight end sneak from 3.5 yards, which was very effective. Toss play to the outside. Anzalone forces a TFL at that point. 3rd and 12, can't convert, and the Jets end up punting again. Wilson backs up his interception with another terrible throw, and he panicked with pressure in his face all day. He really didn't handle it well, Tom.
No, not at all. And again, I think this comes back to just not having the reps recently, but that pass. I honestly, for anyone who hasn't seen it, I can't think of a way to visualize how bad it was for you. But it was like watching high school football. I mean, it was so loopy that the ball was almost end over end. It was like you just thrown it underarm straight up. It was wild. How that got converted, I'll never know. There were a few of those. But yeah, what you mentioned on the Lions side, there was a really nice play by Raymond, as you said, and Goff did have a nice pump fake to try and avoid a sack. It was during this period and obviously the end of the second quarter, to where we just started to see a little bit of those inconsistencies from Goff elsewhere, though. He was just missing guys with throws he hasn't been in the past few weeks. So it was just getting a little concerning at this stage.
That ball from Zach Wilson reminded me of an up and under kick in rugby. Like, you're just trying to get beyond the line, advancing in front of you, and one of your guys is going to run onto it with the momentum. I could hear Bill McLaren's voice in my ears. And if you don't know who Bill McLaren is, probably the most soothing voice in all of sports. Pretty sure he's passed now, but probably the best rugby commentator of all time. I'm not going to try and emulate it, even though I'd love to, but I really can't. Really good play by Alex Anzalone, who had a terrific game all day, and I'll come on to that a little bit later. Throw to Amon Brown, threading the needle again for 12 yards. Ragnow hold, his first of two, set us back. And Fox punting, but can only get it to the 31. A weak punt. I don't know if there's something about MetLife that wasn't, particularly good for him on that day. It was a little windy, but it didn't seem too bad. Only 5 yards on the next drive for the Jets. They go 3 and out, but punt to the line's 9 because obviously had good field position to start. Wide receiver screen to Amon-Ra for 13, then forced to take a timeout in a bad spot where they were given only 3.5 yards when it looked for all the world like they got a first down. And it was said in the live chat, why don't they challenge it? Because if they're going to burn a timeout anyway, might as well, and then you might get your timeout back and also get a first down. Luckily, Williams, when he come out of a timeout, gets almost 10 yards on the conversion running inside zone and just absolutely burning. Really nice play design, good blocking up front to make that happen. Amon-Ra Brown then gets another 10 yards, offsetting penalties on 3rd and 5. So Lawson was offside because he got the jump, but Ragnow holding us back again with another hold. Not sure what happened with Frank in this game, but those penalties and Evan Brown's penalties really did kind of put us in a bit of a hole. Then Goff almost intercepted. That brought up a 4th down. A 54-yard shot was just short. It looked for me like it was just going to get there and just kind of died in the last couple of yards, which was a real shame. And that put the Jets for the first time in really good field position at the 44-yard line. I said pretty much all day, the Lions have put the Jets in bad starting positions. They knew that the Jets' offense was poor. Play that field position game, and the Jets couldn't get bugger all on offense. Suddenly, start the 44, and the tide starts to turn, Tom, on offense for the Jets, given a short field. The risk of the long field goal was someone who's not good at it.
Yeah, and you saw, I think it was the extra point with our first touchdown, which then would have been going in the same direction. There was a lot of curve on that first kick from Badgley. And it made me think that maybe, because no one really talked about the wind on the commentary or anything like that, maybe it was stronger than we thought. Because, yes, Badgley doesn't have the biggest leg, but you're right, that ball just kind of died. And it wasn't like it didn't look like it was struck really badly. It just almost fell out of the air. So, yeah, that was when I think it'd been building from a fan standpoint that this was getting a little worrying. And I think to your point, the tide was definitely starting to turn. I can't remember if obviously we ended up converting, but on the half yard, the bad spot, was this a swift run with Sewell outside when he should have just carried on going? Because that was one of I know that we ended up converting. That was one of the most frustrated I was for the entire game.
Yeah.
Was the swift run with all the space in the world, follow your blocker. He cuts inside, which he so often does. And for some reason wants the contact then and then goes down obviously short of the line. So there was just all these execution things that were really starting to get to us. And then when you see, like you say, the Jets with good field position, things aren't going our way, and you've seen enough issues with our DBs already that it's getting a little concerning at this point.
So the Jets start at the 44. Wilson going deep for Garrett Wilson. And DPI on Will Harris anyway, but Garrett Wilson fights through the contacts, makes an absolutely brilliant catch down at the line's 21. 6.5 minutes to go at this point. Wilson then goes to Barrios. Will Harris's tackle at the line's gain. He swings him round and he gains an extra 3 yards, and it's just like, what are you doing? It was pointed out on the coverage, but like, just get him down. I don't care about the ferocity of your tackle. You're not going to punch the ball out from there. So come on, man. That brings them down to the 7-yard line. Michael Carter then on an inside zone run gets a bit of room, looks for all the world like he's going to get in, and Jeff Okuda puts in an absolutely fantastic touchdown saving kind of torpedo tackle where he just kind of chucks himself into the air. And in another world, that's almost a fumble. Like he's going for the ball as well as the man, and he almost gets there. So it's now 2nd down and goal from the 1. Wilson tries to do a weird victory-like formation sneak. Like there were 2 tight ends next to him and a running back behind him or something like that. And it worked really well. Almost got the touchdown. He was given a touchdown on the field, reversed, his elbow was down even though his knees weren't. Called down at the half-yard line, and then a play-action pass to Uzoma for his 2nd and a 17-13 lead for the Jets. I'm not going to rag on Harris too much for that DPI. He knew he was beat, tried to stop him getting there. I will say, if you're going to commit DPI, at least stop him catching the ball. Like, just do it and make sure that you don't give up a touchdown. But great play by Garrett Wilson. I mean, not a great throw, again, just kind of hung up there. And more bad play by Lions DBs, I would say, rather than good quarterback play. Garrett Wilson's obviously just a game-changing wide receiver for them, but kind of needs a bit of backup, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, he's a dog. The other guy, Olave, obviously from OSU as well, has got most of the attention, I'd say, this year in terms of from the rookie receivers. Garrett Wilson's been fantastic. And when you think about, obviously, the quarterback play he's had to deal with and the constant changing, I think, as well, I think he's going to be a hell of a player. To go up and to make something of a lot of those plays is super impressive, considering his frame and size. And he wasn't going up against small corners a lot of the time. So, yeah, really, really nice play. The sneak was weird. I wondered why. Like, I thought it was quite obvious when they showed. There was one replay early which clearly showed his left elbow was down and he was just driving his feet. So it took quite a long time for that to be overturned, and the commentary team were convinced it was a score early. With the touchdown itself straight afterwards, that kind of stuff really frustrates me. Because, look, they could easily have snuck the ball again. If you've got half a yard to cover, stopping a sneak dead in its tracks is so hard to do. So if you're Ali McNeil or whoever's lining up over the A-gaps, absolutely, you commit to that and nothing else. If you're on the edge of the formation, it's unlikely they're going to be running outside zone or something, right? Especially from where they are there. So you've got to be alert to this kind of thing. How many times do you see, either on a 4th and short or a goal line play like this, someone just released to the flat and they're wide open? I don't know why it always happens, but for me, that's where a captain has really got to get his guys lined up and say, look, we need to know that this could be coming. And if they plow it straight down the A or the B gap and you get beaten in the run game, fine. You're not expected to stop them. It's just frustrating when that happens again and again. And obviously, Uzoma was wide open for that pass.
The number of times over the last 13 years that I've been a fan where it's been goal to go from the 1, and a team, and this wasn't the formation, but a team runs up in I formation, but it's 21 personnel with a tight end at fullback and a tight end on the right-hand side of the line. And either the running back or the tight end of fullback or the tight ends can release into the flat for a touchdown on play-action pass. And it works 90% of the time, it feels like, against the Lions. Like, I don't remember us ever really stopping that play, because even if the defense reads it, you don't really have a man following the quarterback on that route because it's on that move, because it's kind of hard to get to the quarterback at that spot. And you're committing to stopping them at the line, which means that if a DB is tracking one of the tight ends releasing into the flat, it's at worst one-on-one and your tight end is bigger than the person in coverage. Like, that's the worst situation that you can have there. Yeah. And I saw that play and I thought, if only we could have done that from 4th down and a half yards from the very first drive of the game. Like, I was going to mention it at the time, but we have run that play before this season a few times, and it works. So do that. Just do that. It works more often than the run in that spot, especially if you run it 3 times beforehand. Anyway, so the Jets take the lead with 4.5 minutes to go. Lions got 2 timeouts left, so plenty of time. I mean, even with a minute and a half, I think you got plenty of time here. If nothing else, you're actually trying to kill clock at this point and trying to make it the last possession of the game, or go really quickly, knowing that if you then don't convert, that you can punt it away and you've got enough time to try and get the ball back. Because I thought with how bad the Jets offense has been, getting the ball back in this spot is potentially realistic if you go 3 and out. So I didn't mind either running 4-minute drill trying to kill clock or running hurry up trying to get 2 possessions in. But they kind of ran an awkward in between that left time on the clock for the Jets, but didn't leave them time to get the ball back. And I was like, yeah, I don't really like that. But it started up by a drop by Brock Wright. What a guy. Like, you know, just most obvious catch in the world. Not going to go back to him anytime soon. Really nice run for 8 yards on 2nd down and 10 for Swift between the tackles. Controversially running a run play on 2nd and 10 there, maybe trying to get a better 3rd down situation than they did. And Amon-Ra St. Brown converts to the Lions 40. 3:20 to go. Goff play action pass in I formation. He can't find anyone to dump it off. 3rd and 7 converted to Raymond. I think he got there, but they called him short. The ball is micro millimeters away from being on that line. If they reviewed it, I don't know what they would do, because there was very clear video evidence to show that, well, they could have looked down the line and precisely just put lines as to where the edge of the ball was to see. I haven't quite done that myself yet, but it was bloody close. Anyway, 4th down and a half yard they give him, but it could have been as close as that. And I think just sneak it and take your next few yards. Instead, play action pass. Brock Wright, the right-hand side of the line as a tight end. He crashes down on the left defensive end as if to give a running back room to go that way. And it would have been a very easy conversion for a 1st down. Instead, he releases. He's in acres of room. There isn't a man within 15 yards of him, Lion or Jet. Dump off by Goff. And he takes it the distance. Good speed by Brock to get upfield. Make the catch, first of all, which was really good too. And nice blocking up there. He makes a touchdown, and the point after is good, and 20-17 for the Lions. I have to say, on 4th down, I feared the worst. You know, how can the Lions lose it from here is always a thought in my mind. Instead, I absolutely blew up. My voice was going at the time anyway, and I kind of go hypersonic. It was atrocious. I put a clip of it actually on Twitter to just show how ridiculous I sounded. But your reaction to the play?
Brand new Lions. In the moment, I was fist bumping away. Let's just go with that. I was going wild because it was one of those plays where you're really taking a gamble. There are so many ways you can get half a yard, and you can live to fight another day. And realistically, I think if you pick a play to get 1 yard, especially where you are in the game there, you're hopefully converting that 80-90% of the time. So we could have kept the drive going, but they made a call on a risky play to Brock Wright, who's just stonewalled a catch a few plays earlier, and obviously takes it the distance. I absolutely loved that. I thought it was the best play call of the game. Obviously, it won us the game, spoiler alert, but it was just so brilliantly executed. And to your point, Brock Wright he's in acres of space, but he's got a lot of ground to cover. And he probably hasn't been in that situation that many times. So I think it was impressive that he did show that nose for the end zone to actually go and finish it as well. It would have been easy to go and take it down inside the 10 and like I say, have 1st and goal. But no, really, really impressive.
I want to try and remember. So he had one super long touchdown. So he had a 36-yard touchdown in 2021. I think maybe week 18 or week 17.
Okay. But what was it, a catch in the end zone, or was it a similar, almost dump off, and then he had to do everything himself?
Dump off, and he had to do it all himself.
Fair play.
So he's got a 9.8 RAS score, runs a 4.6, 4.40 or something, which for a tight end is pretty electric. Like,
yeah, it's gas.
I really want him to get working on his catching, because if he could be a reliable receiver, his ceiling as a tight end is as high as you want it to be. Like, people won't talk about it with Brock because he's a UDFA, didn't have much production at Notre Dame, was regarded as a blocking tight end despite being super athletic. You thought that his hands would be stone, and maybe you would think it a few plays earlier. But then he can do that, and he showed he could do it last season as well. Really feels like he needs to put a solid off-season of work on just catching balls with Amon-Ra. Like, it would do him the world of good. And then maybe our tight end one situation is sorted, because as a blocker, I mean, he's better than Hawkinson in that regard. And he doesn't give away holds. So he's already in there as a kind of 1B or 2A tight end, should we say.
Yeah, and he's had games this year where he's shown up in the pass game too. Like, it definitely hasn't been consistent, and I mean, drops like that are at this level almost unforgivable. But he has flashed, definitely. And like I say, I think you know what you're getting in the blocking game. He hasn't been perfect this year there either, but there's flashes.
Quirky Zerky has said earlier in the season last year against Minnesota, Wright had a touchdown that was a laser from Goff through 4 defenders, and he caught it while being hit. He has had his moments, as Tom rightly says. Let's get back to the game and the final drive of it. 1:49 left. Wilson sacked early by Romeo Okwara. Carbon copy of the play that Aiden Hutchinson got a late sack in last week. Starts at the left-hand end, stunts inside through where the centre was, and just sweeps Wilson up, which is really nice. 3rd and 19, really nice throw to Garrett Wilson, crossing from left to right. That takes them down to Jets 38. The clock runs, so we were at 1:49 on the start of this drive, but the clock is running, and they get down to a minute to go. 2nd down and 10, conversion to Wilson at the Jets 48. Clock continues to run. They've still got 3 timeouts. Clock gets down to 30 seconds to go. Wilson is sacked at the 40-yard line of the Jets, so he loses 10 yards there. Really nice play by Kaminsky. Wilson's then incomplete. At this point, they've got 2 timeouts left and 14 seconds on the clock when they started with almost 2 full minutes on the clock. If you hated Dan Campbell for his time management, it can be worse. That's all I will say. 4th and 18 with 14 seconds to go. Wilson is flushed. Lions bring not quite the house, but almost the house. They're bringing 6 on this play, I think, on 4th and 18. Bit too aggressive for my liking. I'd like to drop a few more into coverage, but maybe the Lions have gone, when we've dropped 8 into coverage before, Cousins has burnt us on busted coverages or just not quite getting to the right spot. We've not been good throwing deep all day. Let's not let him throw. And I can kind of get behind that. Kaminsky's in his face, Hutchinson's in his face, and then Anzalone's closing him down. Throws up a hero ball, and Elijah Moore catches it about 2 yards beyond the field goal line that they have. But because it's working back towards the ball, his momentum takes him about 5 yards back, and then tries to turn upfield and goes down about a yard outside of that field goal line range that they have on the graphic. He could have just gone down when he caught the ball. That would have made it a bit easier for Zuerlein for the game-tying field goal. The other aspect of this is it burnt about 3 seconds when it didn't need to. He went down with 1.5 seconds on the clock, and Salah, it doesn't immediately call timeout. And it's super marginal as to whether they get the timeout in. Now, the referees call a timeout and say that they did it with 1 second left. Having watched it back twice, I am not convinced that they got the timeout in. If the field goal was good, I would have big issues with how that play was officiated, and I'd have big issues with Elijah Moore either way. Just slide. For God's sake, you give yourself, your kicker, a much better chance, and you know the game is dying. Like, I can't, I was annoyed on behalf of the Jets for that play, even though they converted it and saved the game in that one play. That gives them a chance from 58. Greg Zuerlein's career long is 60, so he has done it before. But his kick is no good wide left. He's definitely got the leg for it. His nickname is The Leg, so like he's able to do it. But the Lions win on the basis of missing that field goal. And, I mean, just a really strange kind of set of plays there. You've got the Romeo Okwara second sack in there. You've got a sack by Kaminsky. We were giving him all sorts of problems on the offensive line, and yet they still managed to give themselves a chance to tie the game. And in the midst of all of that, you've got the time as well.
So on the timeout again, I haven't watched it back. Even if if you think about how bad the NFL has been this year with delay of games and not calling those when they run 1-2 seconds over, for me, rather than I'm fine if it's marginal with the team being able to take a timeout. Obviously, if we lost, it would have been frustrating. But if it is marginal, I'm actually okay in that situation because I think it's almost better for the game. Ultimately, it's an entertainment product. If it is marginal, they get the timeout in. Obviously, if they try and call a timeout and it's been zeros for like a second, then tough shit. You got it wrong. You messed up. So I'm okay with that, and maybe I'm more okay with it because it didn't impact the outcome. This play I was not okay with. To your point, 4th and 18. I think it's Anzalone gets close to a sack and then he rolls out even further. But when that ball is caught, and again, I only watched it once, it felt like there was no Lions player within 3 or 4 yards of when that ball was caught. That cannot happen. You know exactly what is going to happen here. Now, again, you don't know the coverage call, and I would want to watch it back with all 22 to actually see what everyone's doing. But there is only one outcome here. That ball is coming it's getting to that point. Wilson is not going to be able to throw it to the end zone, so you don't have to just bail out completely. And the ball came down with snow, right? So in the moment, and maybe this was, again, fandom taking over, I was absolutely livid that this had happened for what felt like the 25th time in that game, that a ball had just been popped up and there wasn't really that much of a challenge on the ball. And that was a consistent theme, right? It was Garrett Wilson going up and making plays and other guys too. But quite often there wasn't even a Lion challenging up for the ball.
Yeah.
It was Wilson going up and getting it with no one really around him. And it was a similar thing, obviously, with Moore here. So for me, it was just super, super honestly, it was, and again, it shows how far we've come in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. But it's as angry I've been pretty much in the Campbell era because I expect more out of this team now. And because it meant so much to get this win, it hit me hard that way.
I actually think, so I've watched it twice, but I haven't zeroed in on the play because I did it in a rush just before we came on. What I saw was actually a Lions defense who played it much better than I've seen them play other similar situations. So what they did was the Jets receivers were anticipating Wilson being able to get more mileage on that. So all of their receivers go way upfield. And the Lions have enough defenders defending them deep, but also managed to keep defenders on about the 35-yard line, kind of defending that sort of 50-yard field goal range. Because anything longer than that, I think they're like, we'll give that up. If we have to, we'll give that up. But they are not getting an easy field goal here at the very, very worst. And then when they realise it's a scramble drill and Wilson might not be able to get the yards, you've got Elijah Moore coming back towards the ball at a rate of knots, like he's going full speed the wrong way. And Wilson does underthrow it big time because he's under pressure. Moore anticipates it better than the Lions players do, but if they did anticipate it and Wilson did get more on it, then maybe you give up an easier field goal. So I still think the Lions D's played it quite well. And then when Moore takes it, his momentum is going so quickly the other way that, and he's not thinking about going down at that point, but he should have just slid. But he's kind of taking it like you'd want a Lions DB to defend it in a perfect situation, if you know what I mean, running back towards the ball. So I don't hate it as much as you did. As why I was more annoyed for it from a Jets perspective than a Lions perspective was the execution for him was so good and so bad at the same time. Should have just done better, but there we go. Hopefully you've got 5 minutes with me just to go through talking points and themes and stuff, because I know time's a bit limited with what's going on. Cool. Okay, so other stats for the Lions: 5 for 15 on third down, 2 for 3 on fourth, 0 for 3 in the red zone. Not the situational stuff on offense that we've come to expect from the Lions in recent weeks. But me and Ash talked about this on the stream, on the live stream. If you haven't watched it, do, for just the individual moments, because it's kind of funny. But the Lions on offense looked anemic, kind of looked a bit same old Lionsy. But actually, I think that was a bit by design. My theory is that they knew that the Jets' offense wasn't up to much, and I kind of said they were pinning the Jets back all day, not really wanting to risk it too much on offense. The play calls weren't as ambitious as we've seen against other teams who maybe could punish you a bit more on offense. So it looks a bit anemic, and it wasn't that exciting a game until late. But I don't hate how it happened. It did mean it was going to be a close game almost by design, but how do you feel about what happened? Because lots of empty sets for Goff, or like they ran one personnel a lot with 4 wide receivers. It was a bit air raidy from the Lions, just trying to give Goff 1 or 2 quick reads, because I think they were fearing the Jets' defensive line and what they could do against us. And then at the end of the day, we didn't give up a sack. It felt like we were playing smart football, maybe not exciting football.
Yeah, and in general, when it came to say play calling, I didn't have much of a problem with it. I think it was more we just didn't execute. And I know I've said that word a lot of times already today, but it's seeing what we've done over the past month, 6 weeks, and then you look at the second quarter, third quarter, the offense, it's not even for me a case of going cold. It was just mistakes. It was ball placement wasn't there. It was holds. It was everything just not being quite as clinical as it has been for the past. So for me, it was potentially in the game plan, like you say. That Jets defense is legit, and I think you're right. I think it's not like you've got Mahomes the other side of the ball and you have to keep it pretty exotic because you know you're going to have to score 30 to stand a chance. So I don't have an issue with the play calling. The third down numbers, when you kind of look at them like that, 5 for 15 isn't great. That just highlights for me it's more execution than anything.
Excellent game by the Lions' defensive line. Plenty of sacks in this one, plenty of tackles for a loss. They didn't get going at all. Was it 2 yards a carry in the end for them? Just over 2 yards a carry. We did basically the same to Saquon earlier. We did it to Dalvin Cook. This Lions' defensive line is really turning up, and in the pass rush and on the run defense, that makes it so hard for a quarterback to get any sort of rhythm. And it means if they keep this up, the Lions are going to be a real threat down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Hutchinson coming out in the draft, the whole thing with him, he was plug and play. And I think it's easy to think of that as a fan and be like, hey, he's going to be like as good as he is in week 1 or week 2 as he's going to be in week 15. And we probably didn't, as fans, give him enough credit for he's going to have to still learn the NFL game. And I definitely didn't, I would say. I certainly didn't think he was a bust. But about a month ago, I put a message in one of our, I think it was in the Discord channel, saying, is it time we have a conversation, not about Hutchinson, the player, but about his pass rush? He wasn't getting home. He wasn't really disruptive. And whilst he was still making plays, I mean, he'd already had the 2 picks then. He was good in the run game. And so from a grading standpoint, he was still playing well. He was, and this doesn't really work anymore because Sam Hubbard's actually had a really nice year, but he was trending more to that, is Aiden Hutchinson just Sam Hubbard kind of thing. Solid edge, nothing more than that. The last few weeks in particular, he's been so disruptive. So in the run game in this game, he was fantastic. But he's doing everything now. And he's clearly taken another step on, and you're seeing it with his development throughout this entire season. So that the D line is a completely different threat, I would say, and no more so than that NASCAR package. So again, during training camp, we heard about this exciting NASCAR package. They used the terminology last year too, but we're going to have these guys lined up. It's going to be super exciting. And it did fuck all for the first 6 weeks of the season. Let's be honest. Loads of guys were injured. I get that, but it just wasn't a threat. And you'd watch teams just run past it. Sorry, not run past it, as in just walk through it, basically. When we had that against Wilson, again, Wilson had a pretty disastrous game. He's not the best quarterback, but that NASCAR package was such a threat. So I think I'm right in saying it would have been Kaminsky, Aquara, Hutch, and James Houston. They were disrupting every time. And they weren't always getting home, but that's impossible to live with. So it's such a different weapon to what we had for the first half of this season. And I think that's going to pay dividends. I think this Lions team is built to be more of a front runner than a team that's going to chase, if you just think of our personnel. But if we do get up and teams are having to chase the game and we can send out that NASCAR package, I think any team and any quarterback will struggle against that.
And I mean, just imagine that Charles Harris is still to come back, and you can put him on the line as well. I mean, you didn't mention Aleem McNeil in there, but in there you mentioned 5 guys who all are built to beat one-on-one defense, offensive line matchups. So
Yeah.
anyone can get home out of those guys. It's not like you've got Bugs in there or Brockers who's going to be solid but unspectacular, not that disruptive. Bugs has maybe come on a little bit, but
Mm.
you know, it's not like they're in that package. So McNeil's still, I think, needs to show a little bit more in that, because not because he's been bad, but I just have such high hopes for him being an absolute game wrecker there. Talking about the front seven, and we spoke about it a little bit earlier, but the Anzalone resurgence continues. You, as a captain, tell him, actually, don't worry about anyone else, just focus on your own game, and suddenly he looks like not a world beater, that's a bit too much credit, but a very, very good linebacker.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where, a bit like what we said at the start with the Jets have some real talent and they put a lot of high picks into their defense. But they've also got guys like DJ Reed, who is a bang average NFL player and has been coached up and become a really good one. It's what you're starting to see with guys like Anzalone and others, where people who were weaknesses in the Lions defense are now obviously getting a bit more confident, but the coaches are clearly putting them in a position to succeed. Anzalone is a guy I had frankly given up on. He'd been in the league long enough that I thought, yes, he's got a role in this team as a leader, and we do need someone to take the snaps at the mic, but I'm not expecting anything out of him. I'm expecting the occasional find above average game and then disaster game, because he hasn't shown me he can put it together. The last few weeks has been brilliant. Again, I don't have his PFF grades off top of, like, in front of me, but I would imagine that they've been pretty solid over the past month or so, especially versus earlier in the season and last year where it was almost unwatchable. So massive kudos for him for stepping up. It has been, I think resurgence is the perfect word for it. It's been a really clear resurgence. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, I think the thing with him is just, when he was at the Saints, he was a solid linebacker, but of his 4 years as a rookie, he missed almost 2 entire seasons. The knock on him when he arrived was, is he going to be able to stay on the field? Now he's done that, and actually we're reaping the rewards of that, because you tell a rookie, okay, you're going to play year 1 and year 3 and miss out year 2, year 4. Try telling that to Jeff Okudah. Like, you know, it's someone who comes in year 3 and he's almost a rookie again. Like, that's going to make you stagnate. And what you're seeing from Anzalone is the sort of progression you might expect from a rookie getting into the meat of his deal, year 2, year 3. He's coming on really strong, so hopefully that continues, because he could be a threat down the stretch. Spoke about no sacks. Run game worries, but Amon-Ra and Raymond's kind of replicating a bit of sort of run game type aspects with short passes, slants, that sort of thing. It seemed like we were leaning on them in a big way, and despite the fact that the wide receivers are all kind of coming back healthy, Raymond continues to have a big part in this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Raymond was impressive. And Amon-Ra, especially early in the game, was completely uncoverable. And then it got a little quieter. And I think part of that is obviously the offense started to struggle more, but we weren't getting a huge amount from Chark. We weren't getting a huge amount from Reynolds. And someone needed to step up and make a play. And I think Raymond did that, obviously, with the punt return, but he did that on a couple of critical plays on offense too. As has been mentioned many times this year, Sauce Gardner, absolute stud. I think it showed in today's game, and that you didn't see him at all. And if you don't see a quarterback, you know he's doing a hell of a job, right? So you need a guy like Raymond to step up, who's not going to go on the outside and go up against Sauce, but is going to work the intermediate routes over the middle. And I thought he did really nicely.
And just to finish up, 2 up, 2 down. We get more game balls, and we can dog on people. So who do you want to big up this week?
All right, I'm scanning now because I like to normally do one from each side of the ball. You know what? So I knocked DeAndre Swift because, again, that play frustrated me so much, and it was all the kind of bad side of Swift. That being said, I thought he had a pretty good game. And I can't say that about the last few weeks, to be honest. And I know his production has been better in some of the previous weeks, but he hasn't looked like the same guy. He's been incredibly frustrating to watch, and he hasn't done the basics well. Now, he still dropped a ball in this game, and it feels like he does have quite a few concentration drops, which is a bit of a shame. There was that run where I would have liked to see him side. That being said, if we talk about the rest of the game, the basics he did well. It wasn't the guy we saw a few weeks ago where he was not willing to make contact and not just using vision to get to hit the gaps. So for me, it was an improvement. And whilst our run game was by no means electric, it was promising. I think if we want to do something in the postseason, if we want to get to the postseason, he needs to play a key role. Jamal Williams has been incredible this year, but we need to. And so to see him just take a step forward for me was a big thing. So that would be my one up on offense. My one down, probably DJ Chark. The reason being, he obviously he's been injured this year, and I think he'd strung together a couple of really nice weeks recently. Tough matchup, and obviously I'm sure he got a lot of reps versus Source, but he was pretty invisible a lot of the game yesterday. And so for a guy who clearly has got healthy again, has taken steps forward, it was disappointing to see him kind of take 2 steps back, let's say. So that'd be my one on offense for each. How about you?
I actually don't have anyone on offense that I want to shout out in particular.
Yeah.
Not because
I thought defense then.
So 2 up for defense, but I'll do one and then you can do one. So I gotta nick him just because I'm wearing the shirt and I've been shouting him out all day. But Romeo, like I said it in the Discord chat, and I might be being a homer here a little bit, but I don't support him because I got his jersey. No one goes out going, oh, I'm going to get a Colt guy. I'm going to go and get a Romeo Acquara jersey. I think this is the only one in existence. Like, when you go onto the website, it's not one of the preset ones. You have to go to the create your own and type in the name. You know, like,
yeah.
I got the jersey because I was a fan of his. Ant goes on about this a lot, and it's something that I subscribe to almost as much as he does. The mantra of the coaching staff and the front office team coming in was, we're going to give you a second chance here, but you've got to produce. And if you produce, you will be rewarded by us. Now, Romeo kind of did it before they went in. He did it under the Patricia era. He got that 10-sack season at the back end of Patricia's reign and the start of Dan Campbell's. And that first year when they came in, they had a choice of whether to pay Golladay or Romeo or neither. And neither was very much on the table. Romeo forced his way into that thinking. They couldn't not do it because he was the first guy to get 10 sacks in a season for the Lions in quite some time. People forget quite how good he was in that year. But they also forget that it didn't start in that year. It started in the back 4 games of the previous season, and it finished with the first 4 games of the season afterwards before that terrible Achilles injury. He stacked together about 24 exceptional games. When he went down last season with the Achilles, after 4 games, he was first in pressures in the NFL, along with Myles Garrett. Like, the guy is terrifically good at football. Now, it's a big contract, and I have had to concede as much as anyone else, despite the jersey that I'm wearing, that if he doesn't come back in this season, that cap saving looks attractive if you don't know what you're going to get from him. So he had to come back, and he had to get some production. The fact that he got 2 sacks, and sacks are relative, right? Sacks come and go. Your pressures are the things which really gets you money. He got 3 pressures on 26 snaps. Bit limited, but green across the board. Good in run defense as well as pressure. I just thought that it was a step up from last week where he was very, very limited and didn't get much opportunity at all. He's grabbing it with both hands. And when you have a look at what James Houston is doing on a fraction of the money, he really needs to step up to stay. And I thought he put a good start in there. So I was really happy with him. 1 down. I mean, is it harsh to say Okuda? I think it's harsh to say Okuda. It was really disappointing to see what happened. You know, I said I'm throwing him a bone by saying he's probably still a little bit ill and suffering the effects, but I still wanted more. What about you? One more guy.
So we mentioned Aleem McNeil obviously having a good game, so I won't go there. I probably, and I'm looking down the PFF grades now, and this guy hasn't even graded out that well. John Kaminsky, come back from injury. He was signed. I mean, remember he was cut. We claimed him, but he was cut from a team, and I believe I'm right in saying he was still with the Falcons when he got cut. Is that right?
Ooh, where was he?
But
He
either way, I don't
was.
think he was a world beater, right?
Yeah,
So he
yeah,
was
you were right.
basically told by a below average team, if it's the Falcons, then significantly below average roster, that you are not good enough to be in this 53. And he's now playing the majority of snaps on defense with a club for a hand coming back from injury. And he's making a difference. So, yes, Hutch has absolutely taken a step on. James Houston, incredible what he's done since he's got back. Ali McNeil has stepped up. But Kaminsky is a really key part of that. And we will have signed him hoping he could make the 53 and add rotational snaps. And on a team that has won 6 out of 7, which is kind of good to say, he is getting starter reps, starter snaps. And I think that's really impressive. And he is doing something with them as well. So really happy from that side. I mean, for one down, it's a pick your DB, right? I mean, Will Harris obviously gets a lot of negative press, let's say, from fans, and it would be easy to lump on him as well. I'd probably go Jerry Jacobs, only because I probably hold him to slightly higher expectations, because I would like him to be a starting cornerback for this team moving forward, and I don't feel that way about Harris. So Akuda absolutely would be up there. Jacobs, similar. It's just disappointing to see the DBs take a step back. And in fact, I'm going to go another. I think Kirby has really, after that really hot streak, he's fallen off and he's making the kind of mistakes that we expected him to make, but they're getting worse. And that's maybe it's a rookie wall thing. I don't know, but it's getting a bit frustrating. Like I say, we didn't expect him to be a starter this year. He's done more than I think we probably could have expected this year, given where he was coming out of college. So big picture, not worried at all, but it's gone it's downward trend.
So Kaminsky, he has played 21 more snaps than he ever has done in a year before. He played 399 snaps in 2020. He's played 420 so far this year, including in that as 27 more pass rush snaps. So not a huge amount. That's about 10% more than normal. In that year, he got 21 pressures for the Falcons in 2020. He's on 35 this year. So it's a big step up from him. And in general, he has played 2/3 of his snaps since week 10. He wasn't a starter at all in the first 9 weeks of the year, and he's really come on strong at the back end, which only bodes well for the next 3 weeks in the race to the playoffs. 1-0 next 3 weeks. That's what we need. He's going to be a big part of that. My last guy up is CJ Moore. Deshaun Elliott went out of the game, shoulder injury, no word on that, I don't think, as yet, although there's probably press conferences going on as we speak at the moment. He came in, I fear the worst. They're tearing us up in the pass game, and he comes in. Now I'm thinking, right, we'll target him then. But he just shows up, is good in coverage. I don't know whether he gets a pass breakup or not. He had a pressure and a tackle, no PBUs. But, someone that I thought they'd go after, and he was very, very adequate in there. And that's more than I can say for the rest of the DB room. As you rightly say, they didn't have a good day, but he was fine. Can I pick one more down? I mean, you picked one wide receiver who went a bit anonymous, and Josh Reynolds was another one. He was on the field for 40 snaps, and I'm not sure he got a catch. It was just one of those that really suffered because of how good the DBs are for the Jets. So it's a down, but it's not even really a down. It wasn't really part of the game that we were trying to force there. They were really there to try and reduce the number of people in the box so we could run the ball, and we didn't do that very well either. So, but that wasn't his fault. And it was rightly pointed out in the chat that he was one of the guys throwing a block for Brock Wright to win the game. So he deserves some props for that too. I feel a bit harsh. And Quirky Zerky has just said that in the chat. I've preempted you, sir. So there we go. Anything else that you want to bring up as we finish up here?
I don't want to end things on a negative note, but I feel like let's just have a very quick conversation about Jared Goff. Very quick conversation.
Okay. All right. Let's do this.
I'm not going to look at any comments or things that come in, because I think people will rightfully be protective. One of the best things about Lions fans is how much they are protective of their players.
Mm-hmm.
If you could say, do you think Jared Goff in this game played below average or above average, and there is no sitting on the fence. If you had to go one way or the other,
I really like sitting on the fence at this point. It's below average.
yeah, I'd say he probably was as well. Coming into the game, knowing the Jets defense and the fact it was away, etc., were you expecting him to play above average? As in, were you disappointed, or was it kind of what you were expecting? And it's not a trap question, I promise.
No. I think I'm probably with you. I thought in the games previous to this, given the history he had shown, in the games previous to this, I had expected a great deal from him, and he absolutely delivered on that. In this game, I thought the range of possibilities was much wider. He could continue to have a really good game, but the chance of him having a worse game than the average he's shown in the last 6 weeks was much higher because of who he was facing and where he was facing them.
Yeah, I guess. And then the final bit is, so have we got the Panthers this week? Am I right in saying? Panthers away. One of the worst.
Panthers at home, I think.
Is it at home?
I think. Are we? Hang on. Is it Bears at home, or I thought it was away? Oh, actually, you're probably right. You're probably right.
I'm really not sure, but that could completely ruin what I'm going to say.
I thought we were away 3 times in the last 4, but maybe the home game.
So it's the Bears which were at home because we played at Soldier Field.
There we go. Right. Beg your pardon. Okay.
So Panthers, one of the worst rosters in the league. Not necessarily one of the worst defenses. One of the worst rosters in the league. Are you expecting an above average or a below average Jared Goff performance this week?
So I think this is the hardest game of the 3 coming.
Interesting.
And I really thought that Carolina would win this division the way they've been playing the last few weeks. Yesterday, notwithstanding, because I don't think they were great. Although Darnold showed some good things. We'll get onto that later on this week. I love the Carolina defense, and so I am expecting about the same from Goff as what we just saw in the Jets game.
Okay, and I'll be honest, that's where I'm at. And this, I want to, because I had quite a lot of discussions with various people over the past couple of weeks, and I want to make it very clear I'm not a Jared Goff hater. If anything, especially him as a person, I thought he was a classic California, doesn't really care about anything guy when he joined the Lions. What he's shown in terms of, and they said this when we were 0-8 last year, what he's done in the community, all kinds of things, he's clearly an absolute legend. Lots of time for Jared Goff. I still believe we haven't, and I know you disagree slightly with this, I don't think we've seen new data really on Jared Goff since he's been in Detroit. Now, he's definitely played better and worse at different times, but I'm not worried about him even playing against a 10-2 Vikings team inside at home with confidence. Kudos to him for playing really nicely in those games and in other games during the season. It's these kind of games. It's the Jets, it's the Panthers, and to be honest, it's the Packers. They are the games where I'm like, we should win all of those. But I don't have huge expectations for him specifically during them. And I'm worried that he might cost us one of the 3 games. Now, he didn't cost us, like I say, you can always say, oh, if we weren't playing Zach Wilson, we probably would have lost that game. Yeah, fair enough. But as we discussed, you probably have a different game plan if you're not. So it is too many variables. Did Goff potentially almost lose us that game yesterday? No, I don't think he did. I just think he didn't play that great. I'm really intrigued this week, and especially against the Packers, what we're going to see. Because I would love him to show in one of these games, really show out and put something on paper. Because that's my biggest thing with him is it's those away games when it's cold, when it's outside against potentially good defense, and when it matters, that's what I just want to see.
I think what I really took away from what you're saying is when we get the 7 seed facing the number 2 seeded San Francisco, that we're dead. Because that's the sort of game that we're really going to struggle in is against someone like San Francisco, like who actually has a really good offense to match that really good defense. Because the Packers do not have a good offense. And to try to call this in preseason, but when you have no wide receivers of note, things don't go well for you. And even though they've found a wide receiver now in Christian Watson, it's still very limited. Like, just try and take him out of the game. But Rodgers has got nothing. Doesn't look that bothered. Like, well, I'm not worrying about that game just as much as I wasn't really worrying about the Jets game. Yeah, that defense is good, but actually is it though? Because the defense hasn't been that good for Green Bay all the way through, and the problem is that the offense hasn't been keeping them off the field. The
Yeah,
complementary football's gone for Green Bay, and they're starting to improve through the season, and they're not mathematically eliminated, but they soon will be,
yeah.
hopefully. So,
And I think that game's less about the Packers defense. It's more about what hopefully will be riding on that game.
mhm.
And let's be honest, even if we drop one of Panthers or Bears, which hopefully we're not going to, but there's a very, very good chance that Packers game is going to mean something and we're going to need a win. And it'll be a really interesting test. And like I say, with the Niners, I think that's tough for anyone to go. Actually, with it being warmer climate, I'm potentially slightly less worried for Goff. It's more those kind of outdoor cold climate games that I'm more concerned about. And like
Yeah,
I say, it's not a hating thing on Goff, and I'm definitely not saying, oh, we should absolutely draft whoever's sitting there with our first pick. For the record, I think the Rams pick is going to be at the back of the top 10, maybe even like outside the top 10. I think they could easily
really?
get 2 more wins. I think they might get to 6. And even if they get to 5, there's enough teams around that. Anyway, whole different story. I think Jared Goff has shown enough that he deserves the chance next year, unless you're really sold on whoever the guy is. Like I say, Brad Holmes loves CJ Stroud or whoever, great, go get him. I don't personally, but that's fine. I just don't think Goff has shown us that much different this year. And that's why I get frustrated, or not frustrated. That's why I get surprised when I see the 70% pride of Detroit for a quarter of the way through the season saying he's the future. Then it went down to 14%, and then it's up at 70% again. I just don't understand why we're seeing so much variance when really I think we all know roughly who Jared Goff is. And I don't personally think we've seen anything to take us off that, which also doesn't mean he's disastrous, and it doesn't mean he's the future Joe Montana either. So
I think the
that
thing.
felt very like politician in that I didn't really make a big commitment there, and I just kind of talked around it. But it's more, I I was expecting this kind of performance, I guess, versus the Jets is what I was saying.
Last year we saw from Jared Goff, he turned the corner after a late bye and had a really good stretch of games, then regressed at the start of this season, had one good game against Washington, but apart from that regressed again, and now has brought it back again. But his peak in this season has been higher than his peak at the end of last year. His peak this
I agree.
season, for me, is near peak Rams Goff, which is something that we were all saying when he brought him on board. Can he recapture that form? Because if he can, then you have a decision. The fact that we have, for me, seen near peak Rams Goff in perfect conditions, but with a team that you could potentially return everyone, give him the same conditions. Like, we said in DVOA, you take the whole of the season and we're 9th overall, but we're playing like we are now, and we started really badly. So we're better than that in terms of how we're playing right now. In fact, the team is probably therefore about a top 5 team on form. And if Goff can carry on with that, I think with his deal and the quarterbacks coming out, even Trevor Lawrence coming out, probably wouldn't play as well as Goff has done this season with a completely new offense, new coordinators, what have you. Even if you have a consensus number 1 overall pick prospect at quarterback, Goff probably provides you a higher ceiling and higher floor for right now. And for that reason, with a reasonable quarterback deal, he will be the starter next year, and I just don't see any way around that. Now, if you take a guy, you probably sit him behind Goff, and I hate that eventuality because if the Lions are going to play at a top 5 level, at least for some stretch of the season, a deep postseason run should be something you're thinking about, and wasting a pick on a high-level quarterback is wasting a weapon on defense or offense that you could use to actually make a run. Now, I'm not saying that the Lions are going to make a run. I'm just saying if you want to make a run, wasting a pick on a quarterback who's not going to play is not smart. So, for all of those reasons, I think trade down if someone wants a quarterback is going to happen, and if the Rams pick is high enough, a defensive weapon is coming. That's just where I see it going. Because I think maybe you're right that Goff hasn't shown us anything we didn't see last year in terms of he showed some high levels as well as low, but that high is kind of just about enough to keep him sticking around in the sort of politician's way that you sort of said.
Yeah,
You've seen enough to not be out on him entirely, and the deal is palatable.
yeah, I agree. And Like, I mean, I'm looking at the outdoor cold NFC teams, and realistically, the only one who's a threat in the playoffs this year is the Eagles, because the other teams like the Bears, Packers, Seahawks, if we're there, Panthers, etc., they're not getting there. So it's there aren't that many scary away games, I don't think, that are in the kind of NFC playoffs as such, which is fine. But yeah, it's something, and that runs on to even Bryce Young, who I think looks like a really nice player. Is Bryce Young built to play in the NFC North and go kind of to the was it Lincoln Memorial? Is that the Eagles Stadium? I can't remember, but
yeah, that sounds right.
yeah,
I will say I think Bryce Young probably is built for that.
Okay.
He took an absolute pounding in several games that I've seen.
Oh,
he
yeah.
stands up to punishment.
Sorry, not from a toughness standpoint. I'm talking more. I think the size concerns with something like that. And again, we've got months to talk about this in future. People do think about it more from a can he stay on the field standpoint. I'm thinking more like Josh Allen in Buffalo is a weapon because he can run over people. He's got an absolute gun arm, etc. And so when it's snowing, you're not worried about it, right? Am I worried about it if it's cold December, January playoff football and I'm Bryce Young and I'm 5'10", 180? Maybe. I don't know. And I haven't watched that much of his, I haven't dug into his film, but yeah. Anyway.
I almost hate myself for saying this because, like you say, we've got a long time to speak about this. I do really feel like if Bryce is on the table, that I would like the other first round pick to be Bijan Robinson. Because I think the tandem would work really nicely. Like, back him up with an elite running back prospect. I hate taking a running back in the first, but that kind of feels like a match. Please don't do that. I don't want that. But, like, it would be kind of borderline very exciting. Anyway, any last thoughts on the Jets game or Lions going forward for the rest of the season, or shall we get out of Dodge?
Only thing being, isn't it just wonderful that we win those kind of games now? And like, so against the Vikings, I think Campbell came out and said, we made a few mistakes, etc., but we were the better team. We didn't play very well yesterday, I don't think, and we still won against a good defense. And that is brand new Lions right there.
I thought we played great in the front seven, and that's the biggest takeaway I can have, because that's sustainable.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that might not change down the stretch. And if we can put quarterbacks under pressure, if we can actually contain Justin Fields, then maybe we've got a chance at this. 1-0 times 3. That's what we've got coming. And our next episode is going to be this coming Thursday, December 22nd, if I've got my maths right, at Carolina Preview Show. As I said before, no Cottage Pod this week. Last week, the guys talked about the Heisman and the Bowl Pick'em. Bowl games going on at the moment. Some really exciting stuff like Frank Gore Jr. getting a bowl game record, 21 carries for over 300 yards on the ground. Absolutely exceptional. Some really exciting stuff happening in the college game. Go and listen to the guys on that one. It's Ant's birthday on Wednesday. That's why they're not doing it. They'll be back next week. If you want to research on any prospects from them, give us a message. Contact details on Twitch or our email address is on YouTube. And someone actually messaged us on our email address via YouTube to ask where they can watch the Panthers game because they're coming over to London for the holidays. So I thought that was really cool. If you have any questions like that, just feel free to get in touch. I will get back to you. Anyway, those socials where you can get in contact with us as well. ROTL Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The group for worldwide fans, Detroit Lions fans, UK One Pride Worldwide. That was run by our own Ryan Farden. The preview articles from Ashley Soden are on ROTLLionsUK.com. Please rate and review and subscribe and like and comment and all that good stuff that you know really helps us out. Quirky Zerky says, give our best wishes to Ant for his birthday. I will do. In the chat, hang on a bit as we just sign off for the show. My thanks to Tom for backing me up here and being a guy who's actually watched it and has come on the show. Really appreciate you, and it's been good to see you for the first time in a couple of weeks, and I hope you have a good Christmas, man, and fingers crossed for our Lions to do this across the holiday season.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to all Lions fans. Happy holidays. What a gift. Meaningful football in December. Couldn't have asked for anything more.
A win for the Lions and a loss elsewhere will mean the 7th seed on Christmas Day. And with that, let's go Lions, one pride.
One pride.
Recording stopped.
I didn't know what I was doing there, I kind of ended the stream and then I forgot to actually stop the recording, and we're still live because I said stay there. So, so we are still here. But I have a feeling you might dash. I think we've
I need
overrun,
to
so
go. I'm afraid.
apologies.
I've got no, not at all. This is good. It was is more I knew I couldn't stay too much later than this. So
Yeah, no, that's cool, man.
good
Well,
though.
thank you
Good
for
to chat.
yeah, no, really good to see you, and your insight is very different from the rest of the guys. Like, I think you've played in the game and you just have a bit of a different way of seeing it, maybe, therefore, and also worked in it as well. It's a fresh and different perspective that I always really look forward to hearing from you when you're on.
I appreciate it. I'm worried sometimes it comes across as like everyone else is wrong. I know what I'm talking about, way, which is not what I mean at all. And I love it sometimes, especially when, because obviously hosting the show, you have to stay somewhere more in the middle, or at least open it up to other people first. Whereas like quite often, me and Anne we'll see things in completely different ways.
Yeah,
That's awesome. You want that, right? You don't want everyone just. I feel like even when we were doing this a year or so ago, quite often we'd agree with each other, and now I feel like our opinions probably diverge a bit more. Much more interesting this.
yeah,
You don't want to listen to people agreeing with each other the whole time. So, and I think also just from a fan standpoint, like people will see my side and people will see Ant's side, and that's half the fun. Like you want to be able to relate to different opinions. So,
yeah.
not that me and Ant disagree on everything. I'm just saying, like,
You do seem to clash sometimes in ways that you see the game, which is great. Like you say, it's the way it's meant to be. And like you were saying, you're worrying about it coming across as a bit of a I'm right, you're wrong thing. But if people don't think that you believe in what you're saying and that you are plausibly right, then why are they listening to you? Like, then there's no reason to listen to anyone, because well, it might be this or it might be that, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
yeah.
Like, I'm
And
not listening to that show.
hopefully, it's clear that when I get something wrong, or I mentioned like with whether it was Hutch earlier or Lee McNeil, like there's plenty of times I've been like, is someone like, are we getting enough out of them? A bit disappointed here. I will happily admit when I'm wrong on things as well. So, but yeah, no, enjoyed it a lot.
Right.
Enjoying watching Lions football right now. Even like I say, you wouldn't believe it if you had a camera on me during that game, because I was actually pretty stressed for a lot of it. But it's just so nice that it means something. And like honestly, the meaning we've had over the past few years has been, what impact does this have on our draft pick? And you can sit on either side of the fence in terms of, no, I want the win, no, I want the better draft pick. But that was how meaningful it was. It was only about where your draft pick was. It's just so nice to actually like have something more meaning, or have more meaning to a game right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I was backed up in my assertion, by the way, that we haven't been 500 this late in the season since Caldwell, because we were 9-7 in his final year, and we started off 3-3 in 2 of Patricia's years, and fall to losing records. And in one of them, Stafford went down for the rest of the year, and in the other one, we just kind of bombed out. So
yeah, because we had the 8th pick, the 3rd pick, 7th pick, because it was Hawkinson, Okuda, Sewell. So I mean, top 10 picks all 3 years. We can't have been that close to 500, I guess, towards the end. So
no, didn't happen. Anyway, I will let you go, and hopefully, I say you have a happy holidays, and maybe we'll see you straight after New Year, also for the final game of the year, perhaps, or the second to last game.
Absolutely. Like I said, I missed a few, but I'm hoping I'll be back for some of these later games. But yeah, Merry Christmas. Right. Have a good one.
And to you, Tom. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Bye. Oh, guys. 1-0. 3 games left in the season. I can hardly believe that we are still here at 1-6. It doesn't feel real as a fan. It is a real privilege to all of those people supporting all of those teams that do not appreciate wins because they've come to expect it. I know that Miss Bell's in the chat, but Pats fans are one of the worst for that in terms of expectations. They expect a win, and a loss is just the absolute end of the world. When you're used to losing, a win is just the sweetest tonic to cure all ills. I am still with stinking cold, but today has been so sweet. Quirky Zerky says, think of Alabama fans. That's absolutely right. 2 losses this season is an absolute disaster for them. So, you know, I love the fact that winning will never be old to me, ever. And this team is delivering under the greatest pressure. and it's pressure they've put on themselves by losing early on in the year. But they are playing so well right now. And yeah, Sunday, yesterday wasn't pretty, but they won. They won, and winning doesn't cure everything. Sometimes you do want to actually play well too. But they did it on purpose. It was situational stuff. They tried to put the Jets in bad situations. They prioritized that over getting points most of the time. The only time the Jets scored a touchdown late is when we actually went for the field goal from long distance, when we could have punted and put them in a bad situation again. When Badgley misses, we give them the short field. That's when they score, you know? Like, the rest of the game could have gone that way. We could have gone for it on fourth down on a few occasions, but we didn't. We were smart. We played smart, and we outcoached them. We did. Again. That's what matters. I'm going to get off here and get a good night's sleep under me. I have no idea what I'm saying now. But pleasure to talk with all of you. Sorry for being a bit nasally today. More than normal. Just can't really breathe. But there we go. Hopefully we'll see you all on Thursday for the preview show for the Carolina game. I hope you all have a good Christmas if I don't see you before then. And let's just keep hoping that this team continues to inspire. Cheers all. See you soon.